then if a normal flu will probably kill you. Or your immune system will turn on to you because it needs something to do, and then you get an autoimmune disease.
Okay. All right, let's get started here.
Yeah, so
this is gonna
be gist of the story is simply let your children play in mud.
Oh boy, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Especially in winter. All right. Welcome to Smudcast number 282, How the Anti-SJWs Bigotry Fuels Outrage at Woke Forced Diversity in Nerd Media Star Wars, in parentheses. My God, that's a title. Okay. If you guys haven't noticed, this is a Kavernacle video, and this was published just 3 days ago. It's got about 9,000 views, and Kavernacle has about 33,000 subs. And he's up to his old bag. He just keeps harping on Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers and other such people on YouTube.
And Jeremy. Why are they all called Jeremy?
And the all the Jeremys, the quartering Jeremy, they're all just these guys called Mr. J, and they just harp on him all the time for having an opinion he disagrees with, and they're called bigots. They're called reactionaries. I'm called a reactionary.
Of course, we're not in support of socialism and
guess.
Communism, so we are reactionaries.
I'm Canadian. I'm pretty socialist, but apparently not. I don't know. Who knows how this works? And we just
no. What you think about social security nets is different from what they think about socialism.
This is true.
They think socialism has social security nets, but no socialism can ever afford to have them. You need a functioning market economy to support this luxury of developed civilization. So a socialism can never have social security nets. As we see, socialism tends to not even have food. Social security nets are an achievement of a functioning society that is not socialist, but has humanist values.
It has the capital to actually support such things when...
Yeah. It's a healthy capitalism that is not a locust capitalism.
There we go. Okay.
Locust capitalism eats its people.
This is basic stuff when we're talking about economics. When you look at lifespan of a 10-year economic system with a political system that uses free market or free market enterprise to support stuff like soup kitchens and halfway houses and all these other things that are part of the municipal board's budget, I guess you could say. The money has to come from somewhere. There has to be profit.
Rather, the value has to come from somewhere. And this is another thing that socialists don't understand. They think, just print more money, then we can pay for it. They do not understand that value and money are not exactly the same thing. That money is just a representation of value, and that if you print more money, all the money you have has lower fractions of the value that currently exists. Which, now that everyone's into Bitcoin and all that shit, you probably get a better idea of how this value fractioning works.
Well, that's another fun topic, which we're not going to get into as much as I enjoy talking about investing and cryptocurrency and all these other things that you can do with your money to protect yourself in these times and to make money later on in life. There's all sorts of methods, but that's a bit more advanced than the average. I'm going to buy some AT&T today and hope for the best in 10 years' time. It's a little different, but joys of investing. That's a great topic. So
hopefully Yokai is going to join us at some point, because doing this guy alone is scary.
It's something. He is one trick pony. We've heard this all before, and we should probably get started because this is a 30-minute video, and it's just him rambling on about the same crap. It's like, these anti-SJWs.
We can ramble on about the same crap as well, because if it's all the same arguments,
it's all the same, yeah.
All the same answers.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay.
So this is basically today's a rerun that hides as a new episode, but is basically a rerun.
Yeah, he's regurgitating the same stuff. He even uses the clips multiple times throughout this video, so it's kind of redundant. You're like, dude, we just heard this. And he talks about it again. You're like, okay, we get it. So, Fun times with the Kavernacle, the wonderful one-trick pony of hitting people that are that disagree with your opinions on media, which is very odd, because unless you have a really bad take, you can sort of dislike something I like and vice versa. It doesn't really bother me. But if your take is like insanely crazy, like you have headcanon up the wazoo, then it's like, okay, this is ridiculous. You have to cover this. So
that's called, if you have headcanon up the wazoo, it's called fan fiction.
Yeah, essentially. That's another way of putting it. All right, so this is a 31 minute and 19 second video. So this will take time. So I don't know how much Wisp is going to rant about communism and socialism and whatever, and how much I'm going to rant about storytelling and plots and characters and productions and all that jazz. But we'll find out. We don't know.
I already can rant about the thumbnail here, but
oh yeah, thumbnail is so exciting. Look at those.
Let's get to it when we get to it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just get started and hope for the best with Yokai when he pops on. And if there's anyone on the Smudcast who's watching, if you guys want to join, be free. We got all kinds of opportunities for that. I know not everyone likes talking about The Last of Us 2 or Jeremy because he's just a guy. Like, I'm not friends with the guy. He seems like a nice fellow. I met him a few times online.
Which one?
Geeks and Gamers.
Oh, yeah.
So he seems like a nice guy. Very friendly when talking to him. So too bad we met him under poor circumstances because it was about a video regarding him. But hey, we take what we can get. So anyway, let's just get started here. Where's the video? Okay, so we're all set to it's only you and me, Wisp. That's great. Here we go.
Is it?
Well, so far, I mean, it's gonna be great. We have fun times. I'll just be like easing you to a nice, relaxing position. Just calm down. Everything's great. Everything's cool. It's just a guy online.
This is either the intro to a brainwashing session or a torture session.
Oh,
Which can also be the same thing.
It's just kind of boring, honestly. It's just like, oh,
just let it happen.
Yeah, like we're all smart enough to know the answers to everything he asks, and we're like, oh God, come on, Kavernacle, you're smarter than this. We hope. Anyway.
That Star Wars as we knew it, Star Wars as a property that George Lucas created is no more. It just does not exist from that perspective. It only exists to be a social justice propaganda machine.
That are relatable, that make me laugh or cry, depending what it is. I like a compelling, thought-provoking story, that kind of stuff.
I have a question that is totally unrelated. Why is Lauren Chen's logo in the background the anarcho-communist flag?
Ooh, good catch. Yeah, interesting. is she an anarcho?
Lauren, do you know?
Maybe
no,
she just
not anarcho-capitalist, anarcho-communist. It's red and black. Anarcho-capitalist is yellow and black.
Oh yeah? Okay. I'm not familiar with the color scheme, but all right, cool.
The black is the anarchism, and then the color is whatever.
Maybe she's using the colors of her enemy. I don't know. Maybe she's some psychological warfare. It's like
I don't know. Just a figure I just noticed.
Gonna use
stuck out.
Red, white, and green. I hate Italy. Italy sucks. Like what? Why?
There are weird things about this. Like there's black and green, which is I think anarcho-naturalists or something. They're basically just hippies who want to have communes in the forest.
Oh, okay.
All
right. Fine.
And then there is, I forgot what it is, black and purple.
Wow.
That's some weird thing, but I don't remember what it is.
What the hell what economic system would purple be? Come on.
I don't know. Anarcho-esotericism? I don't know. I have no idea. I forgot.
Okay. Well, anyway, let's just appreciate her.
We need to get through this, right?
Yeah.
Kind of stuff, but yeah, these people, diversity, subverting expectations. And what's so interesting about this is that a lot of the time when these studios pander to activists, it blows up in their face because these types of activists that they're trying to court are the types of people, I mean, they're Karens, right? They're never going to be satisfied and they're always going to demand more from you, and it will never.
Yeah, but they may be hypothetically pandering to them, but they're not necessarily the people who actually buy the content.
That's right.
I'm trying to. The only numbers I know that did well were the High Republic books that came out in January, or rather were
They
reported.
actually sold
They did actually sell
comic books?
Yeah, and I don't know which books specifically because I didn't know which the sales figures per book, but obviously more books have been written since then. I just don't know exactly who's buying them.
You mean novels? You mean novels or
Yeah,
comic books?
well, there's novels, novellas, and the comics. Some of them have been bought. So, and the sales were good. So, which is interesting because people who
maybe parts of Disney bought them themselves. That sometimes happens. I know that happens in the music industry.
Well,
and that was the case for countless decades. That the studios themselves buy a lot of copies of a new artist, usually in pop, in order to push that artist up in the charts, which then leads to actual people buying it and the stuff running up and down the radio stations and so on.
Well,
which then leads to actual sales.
I would argue that people were starved for Star Wars books, and because of was it like 10 years or so where no novels came out because the EU was discontinued, or rather, the original EU Legends is gone. So other people started writing more books for Star Wars, which were not likable. So there were books being published throughout the decade, but Chuck Wendig and all these other guys got fired, and so people weren't buying that. But as soon as the High Republic came out, sales jumped. So you're like, okay, so they're doing something right. The thing is not...
the title in itself, The High Republic, sounds like something that could be worth checking out in Star Trek, because it's some other era. If you don't know anything of what's going on within Disney, Star Wars, then maybe you might give this a blind pick.
Right, and it's not necessarily all bad. That's the thing. Like, Star Wars and those books are big, so there's lots of content, and we get the stupid stories of Geode the Navigator, of the vessel, and all this other stupid ideas, but that's not the whole story. That's just one element, one character, so there's more to it. So you're going to buy a book that's maybe 500 pages. You'll get some stupid pages here and there, like you do in any book, and the rest is good entertainment. So I
can't speak on any other stuff regarding the High Republic. I only know about these really, really stupid comics.
Right.
So there could be good stuff there. I don't know.
Unlikely.
You never know.
Just giving I have to give the benefit of the doubt, but yes, I lean towards it's probably all shit. Because if the biggest advertisement thing I get in my face, that's usually supposed to be the best of the bunch. That's the stuff that's supposed to draw me in. And if that is shit, then I'm probably not gonna bother with trying to give the other stuff a chance that is more obscure to find.
Okay, here's Francis Ford Coppola. Thank you, sir. This infection claims to be anti-capitalism when in actuality he's capitalism's best friend, lapping you every crap product produced and shouting from the heavens how bad detractors are. I think our buddy Bezmenov would classify him as a useful idiot. I don't know.
You mean Kavernacle? Probably, yeah, sure.
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
He's not. I don't think he's understanding enough of what's really going on, which would classify him as exactly. And while he's pushing all of this propaganda, that is the definition of a useful idiot.
Well, we do know he is.
There is no use for him after whatever it is that is using him to gain power is in power.
But we do know his political ideology is very far left-leaning, so it's obvious that he cares very much about seeing whatever flavor of communism there is. And I don't know which one because there's so many of these guys.
And killing white people. Don't forget killing white people.
Yeah, white people bad. White people who are in power, even though I don't know who those guys are bad.
Oh. I recently posted on my Twitter, I had a music professor, right? This just happened. I had a music professor that wanted me to make a written statement about the significance of diversity in the music industry.
What?
Really?
And he also had a second section about the significance of prejudice in the police department. So
what?
I wrote you can read it on my Twitter if you want. I'm not going to read it now,
all right.
but that would be a waste of time. But what I did was I went ahead and I gave my honest take, where I said, I don't think that diversity is in the best interest of the majority of the population for this reason, and this reason. And I also made the argument that prejudice among the police, and it's more complex than what I'm saying, but again, saving time. I also made the argument that with the police department, American police, the idea that the police are prejudice and that it's a prejudice institution, that claim is not backed up by empirical data and therefore cannot be considered valid. So he gave me a 0%.
What?
Yeah, he gave me a 0% on the assignment.
This is
I actually went ahead and I contacted the dean of the college.
This is a music teacher asking you to do an essay?
It wasn't an essay, it was a discussion post. We have weekly, I think they're weekly, something like that.
Okay.
It's either weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, but it's like a mini essay.
All right.
It's like a mini essay.
But why is a music
where you
teacher...
just post a couple of paragraphs?
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that all of them were about music, but then this one was political for some reason.
Oh my
Yeah, the police
God.
thing has nothing to do, has no place in the whole at all in the whole music thing.
There was one assignment where he had us, and this was a couple weeks prior. There was an assignment where he just posted a video. He said, "What is your opinion on this piece, and would you consider it music?" And it was just a guy walking over to a piano and repeatedly opening and closing it and just sitting there. I assumed that it was because he was trying to separate the wheat from the chaff, where if someone starts typing this big dramatic paragraph about how beautiful the music was, that's how you know who's faking it and who's actually watching the videos, right? That's the conclusion I came to. So all I typed was "ha," just to let him know I know this video is a fake. And then he gave me 1 point out of 15, which obviously that's an F. So I had to fucking message him about that, where I was like, "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were being serious. I thought that you wanted to separate who was actually watching the videos from." It was funny because I looked and I saw people saying, "Is it music? That is an interesting." I'm like, "I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I'm not doing it. I'm just typing "ha" just so that he knows that I know it's stupid."
Yeah, but he's the type.
The guy's a nut job.
Yeah, and first, I love that you stood up for the right thing instead of just pandering to him, which is always the hard route. And he is likely the guy, without you having said anything else about him, so I don't know what he's actually like. But just
I don't know either, because it's an online class.
Yeah, but from this, he sounds to me like this is a guy who is so stuck up with his own farts that he is trying to transcend the common understanding of art, and only considers everything that is avant-garde to be the actual bestest art. So he probably believes that this, just opening and closing the piano lid,
there's no
is the actual music. This has to be music because there's sound.
The guy's a nut. The guy's a nut.
Yeah.
Anyone who's a musician and trying to have a philosophical discussion is in the wrong field. The music teachers that I've met have been very good, very focused, and very passionate, and very clear on what they're teaching. This sort of nonsense that you're dealing with is, I've had at least 4 or 5 music teachers in my life, and they've all been very good. And
I've had art teachers like that. I've had I think one good art teacher in my entire time in school, and the others were just stuck up pseudo intellectuals to the intellectuals, pseudo artists who pretend to be so sophisticated because they're into some special avant-garde bullshit that actually has no meaning. It just exists to look as if it is something complex and full of meaning when it is devoid of it all. It is just pretense, and this is the same in music probably. And he seems to obsessed with the politics. What you mentioned are the postmodern beliefs that then leads to the deeper the police thing is a complete indoctrination thing. There's nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with the subject. The other things at least have something to do with the subject of music. Yeah. And then
this had nothing to
he
do
doesn't
with
give points based on an objective analysis or an attempt of one, but merely on does this is the student regurgitating, echoing what I want to hear, and that makes
Pretty
him
much,
a bad teacher.
yeah.
That
Like,
makes him a bad teacher who should not be teaching.
my post was the only one that actually cited percentages and statistics that were consequential of my position. And I mean, the thing took me like, I think, a good hour or two to write.
Really?
It wasn't like the usual 15-minute bullshit.
Yeah.
And this proves that you are trying to reason with the unreasonable.
It seemed to me like he would have rather me just offered a passive, semi-focused statement on why it's good to be left-wing, and then he would have given me
wants
full
an
credit.
emotional acknowledgement.
But because I sat there and did my utmost to provide an empirical, objective explanation for why I hold an alternative position, he gave me a 0. He's like, oh, his argument was that diversity was not up for debate.
What? Why ask a question?
That was his first. Yeah, and then he just posted this. He fucking posted the college's statement on police violence and all that.
That is really just preaching and enforcing dogma. There is nothing about teaching or discussion or thought here. There's no critical thought. It's
like Jordan Peterson says, it's like Jordan
ostracized.
Peterson says. This is like when Jordan Peterson says, if you're in a work environment or an academic environment that not only does not reward you for hard work, but actually punishes you for it. This is an example of that. This is why students are coming out of universities more reprehensible than when they came in.
Yeah.
Shit like that.
Yeah,
And
because
believe it or not,
they want to get their papers, so they pander to the shit. And if they do that long enough, they don't know how to do it, how to not do it anymore.
And believe it or not, this leads into what's going to be happening on the video later on that Kavernacle hasn't grasped yet, why this is happening. So
there's one point I want to just make on this, because what you just mentioned, Yokai, is exactly what I read today again, because for a friend who doesn't have, he's completely covered in books right now, and I wanted him to find the time for George Orwell's little essays of Notes on Nationalism from 1945. So I recorded that for him, because I'm not one for audiobooks. I don't know if there's probably one somewhere. And in his first essay in that little book, he explains exactly what you just went through and why. And I just the recording I currently have is completely unedited. It's completely raw. You have every cuff on it and my usual tangents at times. If anyone wants to listen to that crap, 2 hours of me reading unedited, send me a DM. I'll give you the fucking link, and you can listen to George Orwell instead of having to read him yourself. But this is exactly the topic we're facing here, and that you just went through in your university.
all right, let's keep going here. Francis Ford Coppola, Kavernacle made this video after he heard moaning from his wife in the bedroom. And through the door, he also heard, "What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Jeremy coming at you with another video." Okay, that's enough.
I saw a mention in chat of myself somewhere. Please, if you want to mention me, I am in the chat. Use the @wisped. Then you get. I am not wisp in the chat, but wisped, like my channel. It's a wisp with an ed at the end.
All right.
Then I can see. it. And
there is attention. If you want to get my attention, just say something about Batman, and my eyes will immediately notice it.
Okay. It was Ken Kaneki.
All right. Cool.
Who said, yes, very cool. Who said, remember Disney also bought their own tickets for Captain Marvel.
Oh, that story. Yeah.
They tried to boost the looks of in the cinema charts. And to make it look like it's not a total failure, people actually like it. Yeah, no one was there.
All right. Let's get going, folks. We got lots of minutes to go through.
never be enough. So why these studios even try to pander to them time after time, I still don't quite understand. But, whatever. It's their prerogative. They can do what they want.
But as we've been getting more information about this game, it has been pretty clear that it's going to be bogged down by what almost everything that gets popular gets bogged down by: identity politics and SJW nonsense, because this is what they do. If something is popular, if something has a platform, they want to interject that into whatever it is that has the platform. We've seen this over and over again from movies, we've seen it in certain games, and now we're seeing it potentially within the Last of Us 2.
We like to talk about the reactionary right and anti-SJWs on this channel. Now, something that constantly comes up, no matter what we're talking about, is diversity. And to these guys, diversity equals woke politics. Now, I've been thinking...
Someone paused the video. No one's talking. What's happening?
Yeah, I know what happened.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm not clicking the mute button. No, for typing in the chat.
I love how all of us just
I
immediately
actually
check
thought-
our equipment.
I was like, yeah, what's going on?
we just immediately check our equipment like, oh shit.
See, this is why I don't use the mute button. I forget to unmute it. Okay. So this is Kavernacle. I thought he was the other guy. Okay, I remember him. Okay. No. No.
Hold on, there's something I gotta say. Mark in 3D, I liked Batman Begins more than The Dark Knight. Me too. Even though Dark Knight's damn good, I still prefer Batman Begins. Yep, that's my favorite movie, actually.
Right. He makes a straw man. He puts up the proposition or definition or accusation that people who are against social justice, or what did he say? Who are reactionaries, which means not in favor of socialism, equate woke with diversity. That's wrong. That's a straw man. Because we are not against diversity. We're completely fine with people of, one, different thoughts, different ideas, different opinions, coming from different backgrounds. Two, we are completely fine with people looking different than us. We are fine with that because we give a shit about people's character and what they actually do, not what they look like or what they pretend to be, but what they actually are. And that is way more important. However, a socialist only cares that you think the right way. The diversity that people like Kavernacle want is everybody looks different, but everybody thinks the same. And that needs to be enforced because most socialists, at least in the Western world, seem to be pretty white, if we go by that racial classifier. Of course, you have some of the black supremacists who are very communist as well, but that's also not all of them. That's not all black people in the West. They only want people who think the same. We care about people. No, that's also not a well way to put it. Let's say we don't care what anyone looks like or thinks, as long as it's not inhuman genocidal crap. I think that's a baseline.
I would argue I have nothing wrong with.
Fran Mataraki noticed the chocolate oranges.
Oh, believe me, he talks about it. Don't worry.
Is that product placement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh God.
Capitalism spotted. Kavernacle is a reactionary. Yeah. Anyway,
It's funny when they're secretly capitalists because it's like they're a closet sane person.
I still want money, but I don't know how to make. Oh, wait, I'll say I'm not capitalist. Then they'll like me. Like, no.
Well, in the end, the whole socialism thing is a Ponzi scheme. And I think arranging the chocolate oranges in a pyramid shape is the giveaway. But the thing is, where people like Kavernacle think we do not care about diversity, which in one way is true, because when we only care whether people make sense and are generally decent people, and not by social justice standards, but by, I'd say, basic human standards, which is one of these dangerous things, hard to define things, I know. But that leads to people in our circles sometimes to just, okay, you find a circle of friends that is where everyone's of the same race. So what? Does that make them not diverse? They probably hold different opinions. And then you can have circles where everyone agrees on the same thing but looks different. Can also happen. And then you can have people where everyone looks the same and thinks the same, and groups where everyone looks different and thinks different. But in all of these cases, they can still all be decent people.
Right.
In social justice circles, everyone has to abide by the absolute dogma, like the one presented by Yokai's teacher or professor or what that was. And they only care that people look different so that they can pretend that there is diversity. But it's only diversity of looks. They are obsessed with diversity of race and sex. And diversity of sexual orientation. And they abhor, Kavernacle abhors diversity of thought. Because diversity of thought means that there are socialists and everyone else is a reactionary. You don't like reactionaries, which means people who do not abide by your dogma. You are the one against diversity. The one diversity that matters, because all the other diversity is completely irrelevant. People become friends regardless of skin color. That's happened all throughout human history. Yes, there's always assholes, sure, who make a fuss over you look different.
The only thing you said that I disagree with is that they like diversity of sexuality. Pretty sure they're trying to eradicate straight people. That's just my experience.
Oh, sure. That is part of it, and they seem to try to eradicate
they don't want diversity.
Non-trans people as well.
They don't. What they want is not defined in the definition of diversity. What they want is the eradication of the majority.
I think what they want is an eradication of specific things.
Yeah. Well, they want to remove people that are, like, the majority of the population is white, and they want companies to have less white people, you know? The majority of the population is straight. They want people want less straight people in these positions. They want to get rid of, they want the majority people to not be around. That's not what diversity is. You're going to have your Lucky Charms. It can't just be all marshmallows.
But that's also not entirely true, because that's only true in the resolution that they choose, that the socialists are choosing. Because if your resolution is the world, then the infamous devilish white people are a minority.
Very true. Yeah, they think that. I know. You're right. They think
and they do not care about
yeah,
this.
Yeah, they do that. I know. They think that in Japan, they think that in Japan, white people are the predacious majority. I know. It's fucking. They're weird.
Well,
this is one of the things why they redefined Asians as white people. For otherwise they can't get into accusing Japan, for example, as white privileged, because it's a meritocratic country. It tries to preserve its own culture, and they're very, 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 very
sick.
Educated is probably the wrong word. Let's say aware of the threat of communism, not just because Japan, China's is over there, but the threat of Islam. The Islamic population is under constant surveillance. They don't have a lot of them, by the way.
Yeah.
And they have I think I looked it up for some other stream once. a black population that comes solely from one of these neighboring countries. I forgot which one, but it's only those, and it's just a couple 100,000.
Yeah.
And yet, there are black social justice activists in Japan who try to push the same racial guilt trip bullshit in Japan that they bring up here. Just that the Japanese are not buying into it. But they have just a few of those people there, and all this brainwashing is still attempted.
I know a lot of it is happening on Twitter. They're attacking, Hirohei is covering it pretty consistently. They're attacking Japanese artists for making women not look ugly.
Yeah, they're turning the dial up right now. They've been doing this for a couple of years, but it was only a little blip here and there, and now it's the quantity is going up because they've identified, social justice has finally identified Japan as probably one of the last bastions of Western civilization and an exporter of culture. And anime and manga have not yielded to the social justice agenda yet. And hopefully it won't. They can only attack it by controlling the localization companies, where the subs and the dubs are made for the West, the official ones. That's where they inject the social justice and the socialist dogma into subtitles of anime, of manga, and of video games, as we've sometimes touched upon, I think, and as many other people are very aware of. It's where they inject weird pronouns, decide the sexualities of characters are suddenly different, and suddenly a female character makes a feminist tirade about the patriarchy or some bullshit, and which is not in the original ever. And that's how they've been controlling it so far, and now they're going at they're starting to go at the source.
Yeah. I'd like to read out this tweet by Noble Commando. My woke fat beard cuck professor gave me a 92 out of 100 on my anti-woke Terminator paper, probably because I poured my heart and soul into it. Could be. Could be.
Well, what Wisp is getting at, if you guys want a summary, is that the people who are average or actually know better don't see it as an issue. It's just the way life is. People look different, people think different, and that's okay. And we live in a society where we're allowed to say whatever we like and whatever we hate. I'm of a little different opinion. I actually don't mind it if you have murderous, crazy thoughts, so long as you don't actually commit those acts of violence. So that's the beauty of living in a democracy. You have all these wonderful ideas and freedom of expression, and you should be free to express all the negativity and all the positivity you like. Within reason, of course. You can't go crazy like you're waking up your neighbors every day with your whatever poetry. But anyway, we don't really care. You know, it's not an issue for us. It's not a big factor in our lives. But because this is the mindset of someone who's non-ideologically, politically minded, we just have other things to do. So anyway, let's keep going. Alex Halo, look, yokai, it's Kiritsugu over there. Oh.
Yeah, that made me laugh when I read that.
Okay.
And sorry, I need way too many words today, more than usual.
Don't worry, we got lots of wonderful statements from the Cav to talk about. Let's go.
About this topic for a while, and I was kind of thinking about, why do these guys say this? Why is diversity to them just woke politics? Do you have to be a far leftist to want more representation?
Yes, because what we talk about is what you talk about is not diversity. We are fine with diversity. You are talking about forced diversity, that dreaded word, which is putting quotas up for races, for sexes, for sexual orientations, for disabilities, and whatever else you can come up with.
Right, which is politically
that
minded,
is the problem.
Which has come from the universities back in the 50s and 60s and has slowly made its way through our education system. And now we have our leaders, and now we have our older friends who are looking back and going, why are all the young kids crazy? Why are they getting into fights? Why are they have all these petitions and things and standing outside of buildings and shouting about crazy crap that no one cares about.
And it's not about hiring people for quality. It's hiring people for their superficial traits, which is very undignified, to be honest. And if anyone would take the German Constitution seriously, or what's left of it, the first article of the German Constitution is called "Human dignity is inviolable," which is a very strange way to phrase a law. It is deliberately phrased odd. It was the main lesson that we took from World War II, from the Nazis. And that lesson is that no human being shall be judged simply or treated simply as part of a statistic, or as a statistic rather. What that means is that you are not to be treated, judged, put anywhere, or discriminated against, or for, because of a superficial trait, which is in later paragraphs a bit more elaborated, and that is all these things like your sex, your race, your religion, your whether you're part of a union or a political party, and so on. That is parts that are just innate to you, and parts that are not of, for example, the state's knowing. Because one reason why the Nazis could so easily find all the Jews to then shove them off to some ungodly place is because everybody kept track of them. Well, not everybody, but for example, the Netherlands had just in their census registers listed who all the Jews were and where they lived, so the Nazis could just say, "Oh, okay, that's useful," and just found them all.
That reminds me. This year we just had the census right after tax season, and we had it took about an hour to do. Like, this is a lot easier than doing your taxes, but all of these questions, just what did you do this like during this month and that month for money? It's like, what are you talking about? I had a job. Like, what? All these bizarre questions that no one needs to know, but the government wants to know. Of what did you do with your money? How did you make it? Did you have anyone over? Did you do any trips? Did that cost like all these ridiculous questions that they don't need to know? And you have to
sociologically, that is all super interesting data.
Oh yeah, it's great.
But a state having that, honestly, I come from, I am in a country that had two regimes that did a lot of bullshit with data and didn't care much about privacy. And when Germany had, and the whole of Germany had its first census, I think, in the 90s, I think 92 or 94, there were giant demonstrations against it.
Right. Because
the people saw it as a return to the data hunger of the kraken of socialism, whether red or brown. And since we just got out of the red socialism in the East, with the whole Stasi stuff, yeah, we didn't take kindly to it. Yeah. But now the new generations, they're just, I give all my data to Facebook anyway. I can give it to the state, right?
It's a bit different when the law forces you to do the census. It's a little different with Facebook, yeah.
Of course. And the thing that I wanted to get at is that, for one, social justice wants to treat everyone based on immutable characteristics. That is the whole point of it. The whole point of social justice is to be racist and to be sexist. Not anti that, just to be that. And all of these other class struggles and differences and whatever, group against group. And intersectionality is just the upgrade to it. It's already the same thing. And so technically that would technically already be unconstitutional in Germany, but I don't think anyone ever noticed that. We are only right now figuring out what social justice actually is. And what it also does is, this whole quota stuff, it's a guilt trip that puts the scissors into your head. I don't know if you have that proverb or what you say, idiom in English. The scissors in your head is the censorship machine that you already self-employ, for example, that cuts down your own thoughts to fit what is expected of you. A guilt trip can do that with you. And I tried to keep it short, an anecdote from the early years of the political party I helped build up, and after we had our first big successes, you could say, we had thousands of people flooding into the party. Of course, you can guess why that is, and lots of them were social justice activists that we still had no clue what they even were, and that also led to one of the worst of these activists, Julia Schramm. You can look that name up and barf in a circle. She came into the party, and at the General Assembly, right away, completely new. She came from the Liberal Party that she was working to undermine before, right to us, since we were the fledgling rising star, if you will, and wanted to be elected into the new federal board of our party. She came in to the General Assembly and went for being a candidate for it. And she was the only female candidate because we were a nerd party. You can imagine how few females there are. And of the females, of the women, you usually don't have many that want to get up and into any position there because they usually have other stuff to do. But she went right there, and part of her speech was that since we are all this party of men, that we need a woman that you should have a woman on the federal board for diversity, and because the press would be really bad if we didn't, which was a veiled threat that many didn't understand that it was one, but that also put the scissors into the heads of people. We didn't have sex quotas. The Green Party has sex quotas for their boards and all of that, and their lists that they put up for election. So they discriminate against the sexes. If they don't have the Green Party, in the Green Party of Germany, a man is only allowed to speak after a woman has spoken. And a man can only get on a list after there's already a woman. So they always get parity, and of course, either parity or more women than men. And here in our party, we didn't have these quotas. But she put that into the heads of everyone with this veiled threat and the guilt trip that, oh, but she's a woman. We need to get a woman on the board, right? That would be good. And she is the only woman. Oh, who else should we vote? And so she got on the federal board. And that brought instantly into our EU-critical, pro-privacy, pro-basic rights party, and some other things, I don't want to get too deep into it, that instantly brought onto the head of our party a social justice, rabid, fanatic activist, a radical feminist, that would only sow discord in the party. And it only got worse from there. That was in 2009. And this is what Kavernacle here wants everyone to do, without probably realizing himself that he wants to control everyone's thoughts. You are to want differently looking people all around you. Because how can you have diversity in socialism when everyone thinks the same? That's the only diversity you can have.
Okay. Oh, boy.
That's the problem we have with it, because you force incompetent, fanatic people onto us. It's just a trick to parasitize everyone else into joining the cult.
Well, it's any ideology that it's all just a cultish mentality or religious-like zealotry, where there's not enough intellectualism and understanding of the rationale of why they're doing what they're doing, why they think the way they think. It's like, well, you're evil if you don't do it the way I do it, which is basically any religion who's a fanatic. Like, if you talk to anyone who's religious, most religious people are pretty good. They're nice people. They're very kind people. Like, people who believe in God and Christ and all this stuff. But there are some fanatics, It's like, no. This is the real calendar. This is what God said. This is the real Holy Scripture. And you're like, okay. I'm glad you believe that, but not everyone thinks that way. And if they say okay, then it's fine. But if you ever have a conversation about religion, it's just good luck. Like, good luck to you and your time. So, same thing with politics. That's why I never get into these discussions. They're not fun. So, let's keep going. Alex Halo, their attempts to harass the Japanese artists is starting to backfire on them, and the SJWs have started deleting their accounts. I'm assuming you're referring to social media accounts, but we could say the same of anyone like who discussed with us. Like Sheep in the Box is one example. All his tweets about me are either been deleted or removed, although he strangely has kept his YouTube videos about me because I guess he could make more AdSense revenue from them, from whatever 100 viewers he gets a month on those videos. So this is pretty common. Like, they say something crazy to rile you up, and you're like, no, I'm not riled up. I'm just replying. And everyone jumps on top of the tweets or of the YouTube comment or what have you, and then they delete them or go away. It's strange. It's like they fought a battle they don't like taking part in anymore.
And it's very simple, as you put it, and it is it's very important that people are catching on to this. And thanks to the Japanese for not being the softy idiots that we have in the West, who instantly fall to, oh no, I need to appease them. They are mean to me. I don't want to be seen as a mean person. No, the Japanese just go back to, hey, you asshole. This artist does great stuff. Do your own stuff if you want.
It's very similar to the Chinese mentality as well. If you want to build a building, like, there's no real zoning permits. Like, there are certain laws that you could say, well, it's not very safe to put a big building next to a small building. They're like, yeah, you could do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the important thing from this is to learn that when you do not pander to them, you do not take their shit, but you fire back, they break instantly. They have no hit points. They're glass cannons. And people weren't aware of that. People thought they're dealing with mature people, with adults, with rational people. They're not. These people are, and I am adamant in this at this point, these people are narcissists. They are emotionally 5 years old, and if you fire back at them, they have a tantrum, they cry, and they will delete all their posts because now they feel bad about them, because they were caught in the act of being shit. And they cannot stand that anyone could see them having done something wrong or said something wrong. Which is why when you point out that they're shit and wrong and stupid, they have to realize that in some way. And if only subconsciously. That's why they delete their shit afterwards. They don't want that blemish in their past. They leave it up if you don't fire back, because then they feel strong and they feel like what they said was right and justified. And if you fire back and take it apart and tell them that they're idiots, laugh at them, narcissists really don't like if you laugh at them, then they take it down and they go away. Maybe they go to some other target later on. Usually they have a tantrum, but thankfully on the internet we rarely have to see a narcissistic tantrum. If you have ever had to see one in real life, I weep for you.
Okay.
Because that's like a 5-year-old child having a tantrum, but in an adult body. The 5-year-old child you can just pick up at the length of your arms, and the child can't do much until the child is done and is exhausted. If that's a 30-year-old big guy, that's not gonna work.
Okay. Let's keep going. Fran Mataraki, thank you, sir. On the Japanese artist topic, okay, you guys like your anime. A little while back, some based mad lad wrote up a Twitter post in Japanese telling the Japanese to ignore bios with BLM, ACAB, and or pronouns. Woke's mad. I think anyone who ever mentions ACAB, I don't even want to talk to. They are just some of the strangest people to make references.
Right, that just stands for all communists are bastards.
Oh yeah, that's what you're talking about. Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you do not commit vandalism at all. However, if you see one of these ACAB things, if you want to really annoy these activists, elaborate on the C and write beneath it or commie or something. Something that denotes that the C doesn't stand for cops, but communists. Because all this is, this graffiti spraying, when they put stickers anywhere, that is like a dog marking territory.
My
And when you
next door
fuck
neighbor,
with that, when you fuck with that, when you fuck with that, they really, you will not see how they fume, but they will fume. I promise you.
I would love to see.
my next.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
My next door neighbor has a Blue Lives Matter flag, and someone actually took a picture of his house to show it. Like a leftist went on not on Facebook rather. They took a picture of his house and posted it on Facebook, calling him a racist or something.
You know who I call racist? The BLM activists, because they destroy black businesses. And they steal from black businesses. They destroy their own communities. They destroy the people they claim to fight for. They steal from them. How do you... If Black Lives Matter and these other socialist activists actually cared about the black urban populace, if they actually cared and said, the police is shit, the police isn't policing us properly, we're gonna police ourselves, then, since this is the US, they would set up their own neighborhood watches or militias or whatever else and make sure that their own people, the criminals within those black communities, I don't see much about a community when they just steal and murder each other. When they actually cared, they would protect their own people and would deal with their own criminals. But they are not doing that. Instead, what BLM and the other socialist activists are doing is protect the criminals and increase criminality, which harms the black people even more. Because in the end, for them it is not about the black people. It is about creating chaos, and from that chaos to enact some socialist nonsense state, like they always do. That is where you get the chairs from, or any of the... We have a house squatting scene in Germany that's always been... It's basically always been that, what we've had, at least since the re-emergence of Antifa in the 80s. The thing you saw last year with chairs and all of that nonsense, that's something that they've always done. And they do this in order to build their own state. And this is then their actual nationalism. Their nationalism is not towards America or whichever country they're in. That is, they have a negative nationalism towards that. They will always attack it. The actual positive nationalism is towards the communist state. Yes, the communist state doesn't exist right now. Not in America, not in Germany, but they seek to enact it. They seek to build it. And that is why they seize territory. This is why all Antifa exists for is insurrection, and why their slogan, direct action, is, and you can find this admittance in leftist literature and some talks where they talk about it, direct action is just code for insurrection. And the reason, I believe the reason why the American people didn't know what to do with this stuff is because it was a completely unknown thing to them. I believe that this whole gun behind every blade of grass thing does work against threats from the outside. Like when some other army would land at the shores of the US, then it would probably have an effect and work, and the American people would defend themselves. But when the enemy comes from within, no matter how many Tom Clancy novels you've read, the enemy from within is something the American people cannot grasp. And that is why this type of insurrectionist, anti-American, land-seizing power, they do not know what to do with it, because seemingly these must be Americans doing that, so they can't raise their arms against them, right? And this is why the radical left has it so easy. Because they have no problem at shooting you. Once they feel strong enough, they will do that, like they did all throughout history. Whether it was in Germany, in the Soviet Union, whether it was in the French Revolution.
All right, here is Tall Person. Thanks for the donation. Fun fact about ACAB, it was really popularized in the 80s by neo-Yazis. Those types didn't like police all that much, something to remind far leftists of, considering how they love to paint so many things as white supremacy, okay? Well, this whole concept of the white patriarchy or some sort of cabal of men behind the shadows controlling industry and the banks and this, it's like, okay, all right, yeah, there are people, there are bankers, there are people in industry that do things like this because they are the guys in charge of actual companies, but there's no group and organization manipulating people socially to do things. You could say they're manipulating markets in certain contexts, in certain ways, certain times of the year. We can look at the oil industry, the energy industry, commodities market. There's all kinds of manipulations, but not on a social white power structure. You're not getting a job as long as I'm here sort of deal. There's nothing like that. That's ridiculous. The people in charge who like power and money are going to maintain that, and they're going to find the people exactly who they like to maintain their companies. Doesn't matter if they're project managers or factory workers, it makes no difference. There is no massive human resource cabal controlling who gets hired and fired or whatever based off some power dynamic of who your parents were. That's silly. That's weird. Anyway, let's keep going.
Of different groups, and it does feel these days that you do have to be pretty left-leaning to want this stuff, but historically I don't think you definitely have to be, although conservative ideology is normally about promoting the status quo. The status quo in countries like the United States and the UK is mainly focused on, I guess, this white power structure.
No.
Oh God,
no, dude.
no.
It's America. The 60s. What was Martin Luther King all about? What was the whole freedom rights movement? Where is the land of the free, home of the brave? Where do we go?
White power structure? Why do you need to make it about race? Why do you see race everywhere? Only racists see race everywhere. Listening to you sounds exactly like listening to a Nazi talking about the Jews. It sounds exactly like that. It sounds like a Nazi talking about the Jews controlling all the banks in Hollywood, and therefore them being in power and pulling the strings behind every curtain everywhere around the world. That's what you sound like, Kavernacle. You sound like a fucking Nazi. You just have a different target. And as we're talking about this, your ilk has put Jews into the white race, which I don't think Nazis would agree with, which I don't think all of the Jews would agree with. And on top of that, by this way, you veil your actual anti-Semitism, because there are Jews in power, in these positions of power, in government, in the banks, in Hollywood, wherever, they are there. But you now say it's all white people. But you lump in the Jews so that you can actually rant about the Jews. That's what I think is really going on here. Or at least it's part of it.
We really don't
because
know.
What social justice really hates is meritocracy.
It's
and it's
hard.
not just the Asians who are very meritocratic. They have defined meritocracy as, or white supremacy as meritocracy, as those being the same thing. And they've taught the black the urban blacks of the United States that meritocracy is a white supremacy thing. And so you don't to not act white, that means you can't be meritocratic. They've had this in the fucking, the Smithsonian museum, where they had this whole thing with the info panels, where this was on in the fucking Smithsonian. So, Asians, Chinese, Japanese, at really high degrees, are meritocratic. That's why they are now the white race. And Jews are also very meritocratic. So they are also now the white race. Which, by the way, also says that you think, or you want, that black people are not just not meritocratic, that also means that you want black people to be lazy and therefore helpless. This is horrible. This is evil. This is, if just imagine if this is like a comic book super villain plan that a Nazi could have come up with, that around 3 or 5 corners turns all the left against the Jews and makes the black people weak. Because that's the effect of it. That on the side they also go against the other so-called white people. I think that's beside the point. Because the Nazis were more obsessed with eradicating the Jews than with actually winning the fucking war. And this is so I don't think it is too far-fetched to claim that even here these ideas are more focused on getting at the target they actually want, no matter whom they have to sacrifice on the way. I know this since like this is I should take off the tinfoil hat, but fucking hell. If you write a comic with Red Skull coming up with this idea, that might be interesting. I think that would work. Because his actual Nazi followers, of course, wouldn't buy into the self-destruction of their own people. They would probably then see it as the weak destroying each other so that we come out stronger. You can all frame this in a way that makes sense. And it's a bit scary, I have to be honest.
Well, anytime you say that America is always for white male characters or rights, it's like, what are you on about? Where are these laws? Where are these enshrined in some sort of, I don't know, charter? So, like, where is this?
They're hidden.
It's hidden. It's the secret cabal of men, white men, in every state. It's like, what, really?
You know, Kavernacle. Before I transitioned, I didn't get a patriarchy card.
Yeah.
I never got it.
Welcome to the club, guys. You're born. Like, what?
And I still didn't get my fucking trans card either.
Oh, that's okay, Wes. We'll get you some tea.
Where's my fucking card?
Tea is better than cards. It's okay. All right.
They all claim we are part of some secret club or something.
Oh.
Where's my fucking card?
As long as it comes with free drinks, I'm okay. We'll join the club. I don't care which club it is, but they feed us. We're good. We're good to go.
Well, you know, in Germany, there's something we have in common with the Japanese. We love having cards for whatever club we're in. Like we can show off. Like it's like collecting stamps.
Like American Psycho?
I don't know. I think that's still on my watch list somewhere.
It's the scene where they all want to share off their amazing, beautiful business cards.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, but I want my secret club cards. Okay.
I want a room full of Germans giving me their business cards and just like look at my card. It's amazing.
Okay, I just stopped paying attention for a minute, and all I heard was Smudge saying, "I want a room full of Germans to give me their business cards." What the fuck are you guys talking about right now?
Yeah, honestly, if we Germans we are obsessed with having these, and the Japanese who are obsessed with having these, don't have cards about the secret patriarchy club and the men club, and I still didn't even get one for the trans club, then probably there is no such secret organization, because we would make these cards.
Here is Francis Bordacopola. Thanks for the donation. I wonder if this whole ID poll left community that's built up these last couple of years has been the result of a CIA psyop like Project Mockingbird to kill regular liberal progress They probably learned it from the KGB. Okay. Let's not jump too far into the conspiracies, okay? Whew. Anyway, back to the video.
Of white people, and it's in their best interest to keep it that way, and that's how conservative ideology props that stuff up. But today what we're going to go through is, I guess, the different strands of this ideology. You guys might remember, I made a series called The Toxic Politics of the Gaming Community, where I went from like one extreme to the more centrist people, but spoke about how this anti-SJW language was sort of a through line through all of them, regardless of their political beliefs.
Yeah, because they're actually reasonable people, and when you start saying stuff like toxic or bullshit like that, we laugh at it. We can only make videos and just argue semantics, essentially. It's, what the hell is toxic? What are these people doing?
Buzzword. It's a buzzword.
Oh no.
It is not true for the people you accuse it of, but it is true for the people who accuse you of it.
Yeah, I don't recall ever being toxic
Fucking projection
to people online.
The only people who bring toxicity into any community, whatever it is, whether it's a hobby group, it's some video game club, it's knitting, for fuck's sake, whether it's all political party or company or whatever else. The only people who bring in toxicity are you people, Kavernacle. You. Because you hate everything that it doesn't think like you do. You are the witch hunters.
We're going to do something similar today. So I want to look at the people who do seem to be just bigoted, and their reaction to this diversity stuff is coming from a place of bigotry. Then I'm going to talk about people who think it's like a distraction, and
that was brilliant. He thinks they're bigoted, then they're actually bigoted. What an amazing paragraph. That was brilliant logic there. I was just like, I think they're this way. Wait, they are this way. It's like, what? Okay. Glad you're confirming your beliefs. That's great.
Ruins just. And then I'm going to talk about other people who might be more centrist and not as far right as the people I've spoke about before.
Okay, so if they're centrist, they're not bigots. There you go. That's good.
No. If they're centrist, they're not as far right as the.
They're still bad.
Which is geometrically true.
They're just tainted by reasonability.
I mean, he accepts the idea. He at least entertains the idea that there is something. Something that can be called the center, but I doubt he can properly identify it.
But they'd be half bigoted, I guess, because if you're on the right, you're a bigot, right? So anything.
If you're on at the center, you're still a reactionary because you're still not a socialist.
Oh yeah, but if even on the left, I assume you're also bigoted because then there's a whole position you're associated with, so you wouldn't listen to the people on the right. Oh. What is happening? Everyone's on opposition is bigoted. Like, oh, okay.
It's just dogma. It's just dogma and what Orwell describes as nationalism. If enough people pester me, I might even do this right. And cut out all the cuffs and stuff and shit.
But how they often say the similar stuff about, forced diversity, anti-SJWs, and all this other stuff. If you want to support my work continuing for the future, regardless of what YouTube do, please
sign me up
becoming a patron. If you want to join our growing community, please check out the Discord and the subreddit in the description. And if you want to follow
he has a subreddit.
Check out @the_Kavernacle on Instagram.
Of course he does.
And also u/Tommy Cahill 1995 for my personal Reddit. Thanks so much for the support recently. We're chugging along to 35k. For every 5k we get a new chocolate orange. Help me build this pyramid. I'm going to be back to streaming this week after taking a break last week to go on holiday. If you want to watch my streams Tuesday and Thursday, they are also going to be archived, hopefully on my second channel, the Kavernacle Extra. Now, to piggyback off my video about a week and a half ago, I want to talk about Star Wars. And I feel like Star Wars is one of the most ridiculous places to cry about alleged forced diversity. But there's something recently.
It's not alleged.
Obviously kicked off a bit of a fuss with these guys. And it was the announcement that there were 2 Jedis who were twins, who were transgender, non-binary. So Star Wars and Instagram.
They're not any of that. This is bullshit. This is just bullshit.
These are supposed albino non-binary bald Jedi who do not procreate or have any interest in sex. Why would you even mention their gender or their sexuality? What does that have anything to do with being a Jedi?
I wouldn't say they don't have interest, but rather they suppress it for the obvious reasons.
Every Jedi does this.
That's the point.
We don't need to know their sexuality. That's stupid. If they even bother to mention it in the story.
Yeah, but the non-binary, it wasn't about sexual orientation, but the non-binary thing is so because that's talking about personality.
Yeah, but it's the same thing as mentioning
but that's
Yoda.
Bullshit. But non-binary is bullshit in the first place.
But imagine
they make this shit up on the basis of gender dysphoria and then just twisted it around, just like Münchhausen cases do it. Like there was this. I've seen this twice with autism, where I came across. One was in a clinic I was in because of the PTSD shit. We got an older. She at least had borderline, but she had some other issues, and she was just mirroring every patient, and it just took a few days until she had all the conditions of all the other patients that she heard or figured out what they might have. And since I was there, I'm autistic, and I talked with this about some other people because I identified some other autists who were struggling because they were autistic and no one ever diagnosed them, and the therapists there were too dumb to get the grasp of that, and that's its own story. This woman eventually started to copy some of my mannerisms and behaviors, and which, for example, led to her not looking at people anymore. And she exaggerated that because she doesn't know why I'm doing this. It's a natural thing. It's an overload protection thing. It's something I don't notice I'm doing. But she was actively avoiding to look at other people for a while. She copied some other of my gestures. And eventually she started saying, because she probably looked some stuff up online, that well, she's autistic, and if she steps on other people's toes and they feel insulted by what she's saying, they just have to accept that because that's just how she is. And when I heard that, I called her Asperger's. And the room went silent, and the staff was there and looked shocked at me. Staff first bought into her bullshit for a while. And then I took all that shit apart and laid out how she's changing, how she's behaving every other hour. Why the staff didn't catch on to that because the staff really wasn't very smart. They were very underpaid people and not trained at all. So you can forgive them in a way.
Right. Well, you're referring to the behavior of a person and why they're doing this weird stuff. The same thing with writing in this case.
Yeah, but that's where I want to get at. That's where I want to get at. And another case was a woman that I knew for years in the party I mentioned. And at some point she got together with a guy. And that guy, later in the relationship, got diagnosed with autism. And that is when she suddenly was autistic too. Not before. But at that point, this other woman then started to do all these exaggerated behaviors. She also wasn't looking at me anymore, when before she always did this. She always acted like a normal person. And all of a sudden, it was this artificial behavior and exaggerated because she didn't actually know what this autism thing is. But she had this idea in her head of how it might be, and to play it, and then played that out. She played out the fan fiction about it to get attention.
Right.
Because her friend got attention. And this non-binary thing is the same thing about with a step of evolution, if you will, about gender dysphoria. Because gender dysphoria is this thing where you go from where you have this I describe this as a full body phantom limb. You know what you feel. It's you want this if you want to get rid of it, you need to go to the other sex. And this non-binary thing is this excuse of, well, I don't feel like that, but I just don't feel like the thing I am, so I'm something in the middle or above that or outside of that. Please give me attention. It's a form of Münchhausen syndrome.
Okay.
It's not real.
But what I was trying to get at is that when we look at stories like this, and this is not because we understand psychology of non-binaryism or whatever it means, it's because there's something wrong. It's either a bad form of storytelling or it seems off, like these sorts of stories. We look at Rey in the sequel trilogy. There's something wrong about her. There's something off. Why was a hero this way? How did this script get passed through the writer's room and the editors? Who passed this? Who actually approved this? How did Rian Johnson write these scripts? And everyone went, yeah, this is fine. The only conclusion we can come to, and this is just logic, this is basic stuff. We say, how did this script get by everyone? What is the cause? Who allowed this to happen? And it has to be someone in control who says, oh yeah, Ryan's fine. Let Ryan do whatever he wants so long as our main character is awesome. And we have these two characters coming out in the High Republic who are going to be non-binary. And we have a rock who's sentient and they can navigate the ship and it procreates and it's like all this, it talks in a different language. Like, okay, wait, slow down. How did we get here? And the only thing we can come to is someone up in charge has their own power to say what goes. That's it. And that has to go with ideology and political ideology and whatever other nonsense they come up with. Because an average writer, an average editor who would read this stuff would go, wait a second, this does not look good. This does not sound like fun. No one's going to like this. And even if it's just one moment in the story, like, oh, this guy's non-binary, it's like, why is this even here? We don't need to know that.
Does this have anything to do with the story? Is this in any way relevant to anything?
Exactly.
The gist of it is, if you have to sell me the characters or the book on the basis of the equivalent of hair color, that's probably a shitty character and a shitty book. It will be boring and it will be pointless and it will probably be annoying. And in these cases, it will also be full of propaganda. These people don't even know what transgender means because they have changed the complete definition of it to something that has nothing to do with the medical condition anymore.
An inherent problem.
This is the next thing.
This is the inherent problem with writers who don't do the research. And it's the same with technology, whether you're talking about psychology or the technology of the body or physics or how engines work or lasers. You have to do your homework. And when you
in this case, they do their homework, they do their research, but only within their ideological bubble.
Well, that's what I mean.
It's like they write a story about the history of humanity, and the only source that they use for that is the Bible. You will come up with a history of humanity if you only use the Bible, but that will be just a very religious, mythological thing.
Right.
But that's the very thing they do here. When they talk about all this transgender non-binary stuff, they consult their holy books.
Right. So
do not consult science.
So if you're going to use a space opera setting like Star Wars franchise and you have a diversity of aliens, you can do non-binary whatever crap. But you have to actually make it make sense to people who know what this shit is. Because the average person reads this and goes, what the hell does this have to do with anything? Why is this in there? And if it's not
From my experience of talking with self-described non-binaries, they don't know what it is.
Well, that's the thing. There's all this other crap. There's so many terms we don't get that we just we're so unsure of. And the people who are espousing these beliefs are also not clear. It's like, if you want to go that route, you better have a damn good narrative to have this be a very important part of the plot. Because if it's not, everyone's going to be scratching their head going, what am I reading? Is this Star Wars? And the fact that they just threw it in there and then just went on with the story is like, well, why did you throw it in there? It's with any...
But they're not just throwing it in there. They're trying to sell us Star Wars with the advertisement of, this is a non-binary character.
Well, okay.
That's not Star Wars. I want Star Wars.
That's a blogger who just mentioned this because it's about their sensibilities of this sort of topic. I highly doubt in the story there are these two guys who are talking about sex and sexual identity and what it means to be an albino Jedi or whatever. I highly doubt that. So
the books come out right now, right?
that yeah, that's why we refer to it
okay,
as tokenism. It's just there
Yeah.
because they wanted to do it.
Yeah, that's tokenism. The whole quota and forced diversity stuff, that's just tokenism. Good that you bring that up because I might have forgotten it at some point because it's just so much. I would guess. So I haven't read this comic, but I would guess if this actually comes up within this comic book at some point, I would assume it is in some ham-fisted way with some moralizing speech around it. And it is completely outside the whole writing structure of the rest of it. Because that's usually how this happens. It's usually how these things appear in these comic books. Like you have maybe some normal story structure, maybe, or story progression, and then you suddenly have this propaganda blip of bullshit, and then it continues on. That's usually how I've seen these things. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same in this one. But someone else needs to buy this and look into it. I won't do it.
That won't be me, sorry. Anyway.
Maybe just some guy can help.
In honor of Trans Day of Visibility, we're proud to unveil an exclusive cover highlighting Terek and Serat, trans non-binary Jedi, currently featured in Marvel's The High Republic comic.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to stop this again. My God, this whole shit. First, trans non-binary, I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Are you just claiming you are now non-binary? Because that's what all the non-binaries are. Because there's nothing you need to do in order to become non-binary. Some people just shave their heads or put weird clothes on or color their hair, dye their hair. But that's already what queer is. It's just punk shit. But the important part here is this Trans Day of Visibility. I have never called upon that, and honestly, no non-socialist tranny that I know wants this. Because we don't want to be seen. It's the whole point. We want to blend in. We want to pass. We don't want anyone to notice that we are trans. We don't want anyone to notice that we have this medical condition, that we are weird. We want to be seen as normal people. A Trans Day of Visibility is the absolute counter to that. It's the I'm missing the word right now. The opposite. It's the opposite of what we actually want. Because in order to come out of the Trans Day of Visibility as look, I'm also trans, that would tell people whom I passed to before, for example, that well, now they know that I'm trans. When all the people who are supposed to know that are my family, my loved ones, whatever. Well, which includes family, and the relevant medical doctors I'm engaging with. No one else needs to know that, and no one else should know that. And you know what? If nobody knows, nobody discriminates based on the trans shit. It's also funny.
Isn't it great how how wonderful and conservative
these people came up with it because they're narcissists. They want to be seen, and most of them do not have the condition.
Well,
and non-binaries don't have any place in this whole trans shit anyway, because it's made up shit, and they're just narcissists with Munchausen syndrome who want to get attention and use us as a stepping stone, just like the actual trenders.
Well,
who are claiming to be trans but are not.
I can't seem to remember the most nicely organized and friendly and conservative gay pride parade. I don't remember when they were first like that, but now they're usually a big shindig. It's a whole big parade, bunch of semi-nude people bouncing around and listening to music, and it's something I never want to go to ever again. So.
Yeah, I know so many gays, lesbians, and other trannies who will never go to these rallies because they're disgusting. All the sane ones you will not find at these places because they stay away from it. It is the pride parades are the biggest example of a squeaky wheel you can imagine.
Yeah, it's not for most people, but it happens every year. And anyway, let's keep going, folks. 4 minutes.
The pedos love the pride parades.
Yeah, I know.
We support you guys, and we are passionate and committed to broadening our representation in a galaxy far, far away. And of course, it's perfectly normal to represent trans people in like normal media.
No,
but
it's
if
not.
we're going to talk about like fantastical, massive galaxies,
What's an example of an actual normal trans representation in media? Does anyone have one?
Not in Western media.
Yeah, I can't think of one.
I can't imagine one.
The only one I can think of was it was a comedic show. Was it 90s or no? It was 2000s, I think. Becker. There was one episode where Becker meets his old friend's girlfriend, he thinks, and it ends up being his old buddy from medical school, and he transitioned to a woman, and you could tell the actor who played them, her hands were like a man's, but other than that, she looked like and sounded like a woman. And that was the whole thing. He couldn't clue into that, and he was having a really good time with her and talking to her. He's like, oh, where's Steve? It's been a while since I talked to him. So that was the only time I can think of there was a person who was showcased in that fashion, and it wasn't done like.
Sounds good. That sounds done
Yeah,
right.
It was done well. It was done properly.
I remember one. Married with Children. There's an episode where Al Bundy has to have a football match against, I don't remember, and he brings all his old friends together so that they can have this football match. And one of his old friends transitioned. It's played by an actual woman, but still has all the punch, all the power. But that's also done okay. That was also done okay. Otherwise, you will find good trans stories only in some older fan fiction you can find online, although there's a lot of fetishist stuff around that. And other than that, in commercial media, you will only find it in some instances of Japanese media, in manga and some anime and some hentai games. They do it right because they often delve into characters, into personality, and sometimes there's this internal struggle of a character. It's not always this magical, someone zapped into the other sex and now tries to return or something and has sexual escapades on the way. Yeah, those things exist, sure. But there are things which can be fun. But there are stories with the whole internal struggle of an actual gender dysphoric, but it's not spelled out that way. It's just played out.
The only
And
other
that is the difference between the good storytelling, where you just play out what's going on,
right.
and the bad storytelling of SJWs, where they blindly explain everything to you that is happening or supposed to happen.
Yeah, the only other thing I can think of that was recent was Persona 5, but that was with a transvestite or a crossdresser in Lala, called the Escargot Bar, I believe. Or no, it was Lala Escargot. I can't remember the name of the bar, but she was the bartender, or he was the bartender. And it's clearly a man, like with the shape of his face and all that, but wearing female clothes. So, but that's not transsexual. That's just transvestite. So,
yeah.
I honestly can't think of anything recent. So, anyway,
where millions of different species of aliens who have all these, weird different cultures and have weird different biologies and everything. You honestly telling me that two trans non-binary people is the most outrageous thing you've heard about?
Yeah, because it is bullshit.
Okay, so
yes.
I don't mind it that there are the opportunity to tell these stories because they have a setting that involves aliens. But guess what? You can't just have aliens that are non-binary. That doesn't make sense. There has to be an explanation. That's why I say I don't mind doing it. I don't mind having these elements, but have it make sense or don't include it. Don't confuse Don't give me an alien who thinks he's a transsexual or whatever. That's weird. Or
especially if it's supposed to be a Jedi, because a Jedi is supposed to be free of all bullshit. If if he has a constant pain because of some dysphoria, for example, that's not gonna make a good Jedi. That's someone who's very prone to succumbing to the dark side.
If the guy thinks he's Napoleon Bonaparte, I'm like, that's freaking weird. Where'd that come from? And then they just keep going on with the story. Like, no, slow back. Let's rewind there a bit.
There was an interesting episode of The Next Generation where there was a race. It was an alien race of individuals whose ancestors were male, but that over time the sexes became one single sex, and that it was considered a mental illness if you thought that you were a single sex, or if you had certain behaviors that were effeminate.
I think you're recounting that a bit wrong. They still had the two sexes, but they thought it a danger to society, because it was a play on this equity thing that the socialists are doing with erasing sex, because that is a thing that brings conflict. They still had the two sexes. They were just socially suppressing them.
They have no gender. That was the whole thing.
Yeah, like they had no gender, and if
but they brainwash it onto people, and there are people like the character that gets into a romantic relationship with Riker. Is one of the few that want to break out of that, because they can't deal with this suppression of their actual identity.
Yeah.
Of being a man or a woman, and the implication is solely that is onto their biological sex, not on a choice. Well, yeah, sorry for talking over you there, but
no, you're good. Sorry.
I just rewatched TNG a while ago, so it's pretty fresh in my memory.
Yeah, I'm still I'm still watching it for the first time. I'm near the end now.
All right. Here's Fran Mataraki in KND. Number 5's friend Heine, who was a fat dude, was actually a cute chick under a curse. What are we talking about? What the hell is that sentence?
Kids Next Door. It's an episode of Kids Next Door. I'm not familiar with that particular plot line. It was a Cartoon Network show.
Oh. I was like, what am I saying?
I've had, because there's a scene about gender dysphorics tend to write escapist fiction about transitioning oftentimes, which of course fetishists also dig into. But the stuff that the actual gender dysphorics write is in my experience usually better, because it isn't just the suddenly magical transformation stuff. But it has these inner struggle things in. And there are there's even a even smaller scene of people who make RPG Maker games, and bloody hell do they make good storylines and level design and all of that. And sometimes I'm just when I was going through those, I was just flabbergasted. One had the main character was thought to be. You could interpret the character as gender dysphoric, but it's the story of the what do you call it? The spirited away child that is the heir to either the kingdom or has some innate power or something that the demon lord is scared of or something. And in order to hide the child got a spell that also changed the sex as a young kid, and then was adopted into a family. The family knew about this, but raised the child according to the transformed sex. But the child, as it grew older, always was interested in things of the other sex. So it looked like a trans story, but it's actually one of these. It's that the curse is forced upon you, and gender dysphoria often is viewed as a curse by those who have it.
So that example,
part of the story is then to get eventually get rid of this curse as well.
Yeah, but that is part of the plot. That's actual events in the story about gender. Whereas stuff like these two twins, it's just thrown in there, and you're like, what the hell? Why did you do?
Yeah.
So that's why people come to the deduction that this is crap. You just
yeah. And we think the trannies, We think this is crap because we, or some of us, are writing actually good stuff. And this stuff there is just crap. It's just slam on the token word, and then some SJW craptivist jerks off to, oh, it's a trans character. Oh, it's so awesome. Oh. Why there's nothing to it. It's what I call the political fetishism.
Yeah.
There's no substance behind it. It's just looking at a fetish and jerking off to it.
That happens a lot on YouTube. So
A lot of jerking off, yeah.
This really diverse galaxy. So let's first take a look at Geeks and Gamers' reaction to this.
It's just a fact that Star Wars as we knew it, Star Wars as a property that George Lucas created and catapulted to the biggest thing that we've ever seen in the history of pop culture is no more. It just does not exist from that perspective. It only exists to be a social justice propaganda machine. And if you disagree with that, then you will be called a bigot, you will be called a racist, you'll be called a sexist. That is what Lucasfilm is doing. It does not represent Star Wars. And again, this has nothing to do with anybody that is a trans person or whatever. This is talking about how Lucasfilm uses identity politics. Uses identity politics to attack their fan base. That's what this is about. Because Lucasfilm is not about Star Wars. Lucasfilm is about identity politics. They posted this on Facebook, so you have to use your personal account to call them out and then get doxxed and harassed by radical activists for your bigotry. He's 100% right. 100% right. They did this on Facebook for a reason. But ultimately, Star Wars is not what you want it to be. It's not what I want it to be. It's not what anyone that grew up watching it wants it to be. It is simply a social justice propaganda platform now.
Now, to people like him, it's not just him. They see this as part of the culture war, where the SJWs are just pushing an ideology. Your ideology by just representing trans non-binary people. It's something
you're not representing us at all.
For a long time. But even on this issue, you're
making a caricature out of us that everyone hates.
You know, the most left-wing people to accept that gender isn't binary. And an example people might not know,
but it is
in Pakistan, not a woke place, not a very liberal place. There is actually a third gender. So in Pakistan, they are called the Hawaja Sira, the equivalent of transgender in the Urdu language. Hijras are officially recognized as a third gender in the Indian subcontinent, being considered neither completely male nor female.
No, they're cross-dressers.
That's it, yeah.
I'm sorry, dude. They're just cross-dressers.
What does he mean by
maybe some of them are maybe some of them have gender dysphoria, but the majority of them, you look at them, they're cross-dressers. Maybe they're gay. And that's the same we have here. It's just that the Pakistani found some way to categorize and define and deal with this phenomenon that is present throughout humanity, apparently. The Native Americans called it Two-Spirit. That's the same thing. That's the umbrella. That was the umbrella term for the flamboyant gays, if you will, cross-dressers, and people with gender dysphoria. But since there is a name in that culture for that thing, social justice, being a bit retarded as it is, thought, oh, this is an extra thing we need to slam onto the LGBT as an extra letter, when it is already covered by the trans, if you will. At least the relevant part. And the other part is covered by the gay part. Because, well, there's nothing, dude, there's if they're just cross-dressers, and not all cross-dressers are gay, by the way, that's not a gender. You have an agenda, but there is no third gender. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Oh,
so this type of stuff even goes back to, like, you know, Greek gods and other various ancient gods as well.
Which are mythological, which don't exist. Thank you.
Yeah, they're not real things.
Hermaphroditus, I believe. Jesus.
Yeah, that's where the term comes from.
Yes.
Oh, and if you go back into the real funky stuff of the Old Testament and apocryphal shit. The whole Adam Lilith thing, that's some fucked up shit, man. That's Lovecraftian madness. But okay. Yeah.
Let's go back to Greek mythology. It's not real. I don't care how old it is.
Yeah, it's mythology. it's mythology. Okay, mythology is fan fiction about reality. Discuss.
No, please, let's keep going.
Not something new. We've been made to think it's something new. And I think there's something interesting for people to go and research. Look at the Weimar Republic and look at the LGBT community and the push for LGBT rights in that society.
That's what brought Hitler about in part.
Researching some of my videos earlier in the year.
Read Hitler's shit, and you will find that he is ranting about the degeneracy of the Weimar Republic and of especially in Berlin, and it's part of the rage of Hitler, and it's one of these things where you can literally for once bring up this whole thing of everybody, there was total chaos and degeneracy, and then for no apparent reason Hitler came into power. In that instance, you can make that argument because it was a factor in it. It wasn't the main factor, but it was a factor. It's just funny that he brings that up.
Why did he reference the Weimar Republic? What a strange, oh yeah, talk about
He's
the
looking
LGBT.
for random shit.
I don't know.
The Weimar Republic, where red shirts went onto the streets.
The only reason we think this stuff
people.
is like modern wokeism is because it's been suppressed for decades and decades and decades. Now, for me, this type.
Who's suppressing people from talking? What are you talking about?
The people who've been suppressing people from talking for decades and decades and decades.
Which countries?
We're socialists in my home country.
The Americans did it. It's like when? Decades? Since when?
They're doing it now.
The most free country in the world. Oh yeah, they've been suppressing your sexual desires.
No, Weimar Republic. What? What? Dude. I didn't expect the Weimar Republic.
Gut reaction of someone who actually is bigoted, in that just this representation, this tiny representation of these two twin Jedis in the High Republic series of comics and novels is enough for you to kick up a fuss and scream about identity politics and scream.
Yeah, because you're making up shit. You're making up esoteric, anti-science shit.
Really reveal what these people are and how they actually view these people. Because it's not even a main character. It's not.
Okay, he's associating.
They're on the title page.
Associating characters are not people, guys. We know they're fictitious. We know they're characters. It's their description and depiction which doesn't make sense. They're poorly written. They're poorly drawn or poorly depicted. That's it.
Yeah, here, he's now he's playing it down. He's playing down the issue. This is a common thing for ideologues. It's also like the thing when we heard a lot about feminism 10 years ago, the radicals on the internet that, don't pay attention to them. It's just a few fringe mad idiots. Nobody's listening to them. Just don't pay any attention. And that if you buy into that, you're just giving them what they want, which is a safe space in which they can fester and recruit and brainwash more people into their thing. And now, what do we have? We have this giant movement spanning the generations. The march through the institutions is almost complete. And they're everywhere. And this is why I disagree with someone in the chat as well, who said that we shouldn't pay attention to these people, not honoring them by debunking them or some shit. No, that is the very shit that Antifa wants, which you can read if you ever on their mailing lists, and some new initiate asks about, there's someone I had an argument with about this and that, and then it will instantly come one of the old guard in and say, don't even talk with the people who think differently. They'll just because that honors their position, and we shouldn't do that. They want to isolate their own new initiates from other arguments so that they get indoctrinated further and don't get out while they still could. Here we need to pay attention to these people and need to take them apart so that there is some sort of inoculation somewhere for at least a few people. That's why we need to do this shit.
I'm actually more offended by the other parts of the story, like the vessel. The name of the spaceship is called the Vessel, where Geo navigates and all these other guys are on top of. Like if you were naming a car, like in your story, the car or my car, it's like that's the most unoriginal, uncreative thing you could possibly name something. Like name my dog Dog. Like come on, you could call it Sarah. I don't really care. Just give it a name that means something. Just don't give it these asinine values that means nothing to me. It's so generic. It's so silly. So all these writers who think, oh, this is going to be a great name, The Vessel. It's like, come on. And you see the picture of the vessel. It looks like a generic-looking spaceship. And you're like, okay, this is shit. So this kind of story with this kind of setting and obviously the big franchise behind it is not quality, is not something worth reading or looking at. And that's the problem. It should be something good. And it could be said of any other franchise that people take and use it into their own way, or like Mass Effect comic books and all these BioWare mixed media crap that they come out with. And it's just sad to see that they didn't pay a writer worth some weight in the ink they're using to write the words on the page, to call a spaceship the Vessel. And it's nothing. It's not like it's a generic awesome ship that it's so cool, it's so badass and awesome that you can't even think of a name for it. You just call it the Vessel. No, it's just a stupid little transport ship. It's generic. Anyway.
Yeah, and RSG in the chat says the exact thing I just described. This, you fools are helping this ideology. You give them credence by responding. No, that is the exact arguments that Antifa makes on their mailing lists, to not engage with the other side, because that would just give them credence. That would just honor their position and give it validation. That is not the case. This is something ideologues tell you, to not engage with those who think differently. And these people need to be taken apart. People need to see it. Otherwise, they fester and just get more. The only reason they could grow so much is because they were left unchallenged and not seen as the threat they really are.
Guys, Kavernacle exists because of his audience. He gets these views because of whatever reason people like watching him. And
I sorry for interjecting. It's just RSG in the chat. I understand you are tired of it. We are all tired of it. But this is also part of the demoralization process, to tire us out until we can't fight anymore. Tiring out a troll is almost impossible. Fanatics always have the longer breath than any sane person, any reasonable person, because they are driven by something else. And I always want to bring up the example of Christopher Hitchens inviting the Grand Dragon of the KKK into his show and interviewing him for an hour. And most of that is just letting the damn idiot speak and make a fucking fool of himself. That was one of the bravest things I've seen on television. And you should watch it. Look for Christopher Hitchens, KKK, Grand Dragon. It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, and everybody thought, oh, you can't give a platform to a Grand Dragon of the KKK. He did it. And it was the right thing to do, because the guy made an absolute fool of himself because he's an idiot. It was even his father, the previous Grand Dragon or Wizard or whatever they call themselves, who called into the show because the current guy, his son, was making such a fool of himself, which made it even more hilarious. We need to expose these people as the idiots they are. And it's tiring.
Just to be clear, I've
talked at the info booth at the market that I did almost every weekend for 10 years. I had some regulars coming, some regular nut jobs. Some of them were Holocaust deniers. And sometimes all day long, the only person I talked with was a Holocaust denier, and I am so tired of talking about the Holocaust with Holocaust deniers. But sometimes even with them, a rusty cog can start turning. It's rare and it's difficult to get to that point, but it doesn't mean that it will keep turning, but it can squeak a little. And what's more important is there are always people standing by, not interrupting in the conversation. They are listening, they are watching, and they are the actual target of that conversation, not the person you're tearing apart here. The real people, the important people are the people in the audience here.
All right.
Someone in the movie acceptable
sorry,
if they did this, but they're freaking out about just a minor character in the comics and novels. Again, it's totally ridiculous, but again, this is the part where I show you this is often a dog whistle for bigoted views. People who don't accept these guys, they see anything that...
I will admit it is a minor factor in the rest of the story, but it's still something to go, why is this in there? Oh, someone with an ideology put it in there. Tokenism.
If it's a minor thing in the story, why is it on the title page? Why is it on the cover?
Yeah.
And we keep seeing it time after time.
It's a silly marketing tactic, and I don't know why they did it. It's just, if it was just a bunch of aliens that
So they can make money.
that were bald,
They keep trying to pander to their woke socialist crowd without realizing that this crowd is not only very small, it also doesn't buy shit. They want their propaganda to be in everything, but they don't want to pay for it.
I remember seeing one of the comic books of someone falling down, I don't know, a spire, like a rock spire, and the Jedi pulled out their lightsaber, and they were using the lightsaber like a knife, like into the jagged rock, and it was slowing their descent. And they stopped, and I was like, wait. That's a lightsaber, that's a rock. That thing would just keep going.
That's not how it should work.
So there's lots of these little problems in these books. And it's really sad, like really sad to see this stuff happen to Star Wars. And to have the authors go, oh, I apologize, I didn't know the lore. You don't know the lore of a lightsaber?
Oh, you can't even imagine it?
Oh boy!
Like, it's
just watch one movie. Holy shit!
I mean, God, yeah. When they try to open a door with the lightsaber, it's not that they stick in the lightsaber and it sticks out on the other end. It's that it heats the fucking metal up until it gets through like a torch. Because that's what a lightsaber in the end is. It's a controlled plasma torch in a way. So you can't just use it as something to as you're falling down a cliff to jab into the rock. You're just heating up the rock as you fall.
Yeah.
In a long line.
It's like the heat, the temperature of a star going through a rock is not going to stop. Like nothing's going to stop that. If it was iron, maybe it would slow you down. I don't know.
Now, even then, you it's not that the blade is lodged into the rock or the metal. You're just pointing a torch at it. Yeah. Like a flame. Like imagine a flamethrower.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like you shoot a flamethrower at the rock, and now the flame gets stuck in the rock, and that's why you stop falling.
This is the problem with Star Wars. It's not science fiction hard. It's not completely solid to make sense of. So when you start bending the rules, like I'm going to use this to slow my descent of gravity, it's like, wait a second, what is this thing made of again?
Yeah, but even science fantasy only goes that far.
Yeah, you can't push it too far.
You can break
exactly,
that is breaking the immersion because that doesn't make sense. Because then lightsabers are behaving differently in every iteration. That's shit.
This is not the mysticism of the Force and what it can do. Like you can get very flexible with how telekinesis works and telepathy and all that crap. You can do lots of crazy stuff that is like, all right, that makes sense. But a lightsaber is a piece of technology. It works a very specific way. And the way they use it in all the movies, not just the new ones, but the originals, I never really liked. Because there's something about like, man, this thing should be really freaking dangerous, like really scary to use. And they're throwing it around like it's like a katana or something. Like that's not something you want to spin around and hold with and play around and twirl. It's like you miss up once, you've lost an arm or you're dead. So it's one of those extremely dangerous things. And I would imagine only someone like the Jedi would be able to manipulate it because it takes all this practice and discipline and being aware and having heightened senses and reactions and muscles and all that crap. So I was always like, okay, this is a very situational tool and only other people who know how to use it can go up against them. Because an average guy with a gun wouldn't be able to stop a Jedi. And then you see Jedi die in episode 3 and you're like, okay, something's wrong, George. What'd you do? All the Jedi died.
It's like poetry, so that it rhymes.
I guess. I don't know. I thought Jedi were awesome, but no, they just get shot in the back. Anyway.
Deviates from the traditional white male power structure is somehow bad, is somehow woke, is somehow part of some massive left-wing agenda. Now, I'm going to come back to transgender issues when I talk about part 3 with, the views of people on things like Cyberpunk the game, but I'm going to move it across to another person who just goes mask off with outright bigotry when they see diversity. And I played these clips in my Last Jedi video from a couple weeks ago. Basically, it's No BS talking about why The Last Jedi is
No BS.
Bad.
Oh,
and what
God,
he does
this
is
guy.
say that every character who's not played by a white guy is a token minority, and then every white guy in the film is demonized, meaning this film has an agenda of anti-white politics.
Start with the overly diverse casting, something that's been painstakingly present in all 3 of the new Star Wars movies made under Disney. Things are...
Okay, someone paused it again. No one's talking.
Oh,
I didn't pause it.
Wasn't me.
sorry. Then you also didn't hear my other rants. Nobody takes Nob seriously.
Yeah,
I
No
thought
BS is
he
a
was
joke.
talking about Cyberpunk.
No BS. I don't know if you guys know No BS, the YouTuber. Yeah, we don't take him. No one takes him
I've
seriously.
seen his
Yeah.
channel, but I've never watched his video.
If you want to cringe, there was, I think it's about a year ago, on Sitch and Adams podcasts a long time ago. They had Knobs on for discussion, and before they tried to take his shit apart. It's an experience. The guy is not very smart. He just looks for someone to pander to because he wants to have friends. It's, in a way, it's very sad. It's a bit like what was his name? The Quentin. It's a bit like Quentin, but on the other side of the fence.
That's a weird comparison, but okay.
Yeah, but I see the same pattern of he wants to belong somewhere.
I do know his channel he was struggling to do certain types of videos that never took off, and then he found one technique which was pandering to the right, I guess the right-leaning people who hate all this crap in Hollywood. So,
yeah, he doesn't actually believe this stuff. He just says he just goes for it because there's people who dig it.
It's strange to some of his videos were okay, and then you're like, wait a second, that's too. You're going too far, dude. That is way too far right. Just slow down there.
One of his most famous quotes is a suspicious amount of women.
Is that when he was interviewed by JXE? When JXE was asking him all these questions, like they showed the clip of that?
No. He said that in a video of his. I don't know about what media at the time, but he wanted to see the feminist agenda at play because of a suspicious amount of women in whatever the thing was.
What was the
Don't get me
amount?
started on JXE.
More than 2.
Okay. That's all right. Here's Mike
It's just
Testa.
there are no winners here.
Oh, come on. That's a low blow. Nobody takes him seriously. Yeah, anyone who listens to one of his videos go, wait a sec, that was a bit odd. And some of those videos are pretty far-fetched, so yeah, we don't really care. So why Kavernacle is attacking him now, I don't. Why we jumped to him, I don't know. Why not?
I thought
Kavernacle?
he was talking about Cyberpunk.
I know, he just brought that up. I'm going to talk about Cyberpunk. Was he going to talk about The Last of Us 2? Like, where did all this come from? Random topics.
Or maybe he just brings it all up and now goes through it in random order or something.
I'm sure there's
Let's
a
find
meaning
out.
behind it. I just don't know what it is.
Things are so diverse and multicultural now, it's kind of distracting, if we're being honest. Luckily, the cast is good in The Last Jedi. They're all talented actors, but unfortunately, they're not given much to work with here, story-wise.
Some of
they
them.
do their best, but sometimes your best isn't good enough. One caveat to throw in there would, of course, be the demonization of white males, who in the new movies are almost exclusively all the villains and evil characters. And on the flip
Not
side,
wrong, but it's
minorities
all the
and women
males
all the
are
best and coolest
put as
characters.
bad
There's
and
this
dumb.
old coot in this movie, which is fine, but I'm starting to think he's a bit of a scapegoat here. He represents what's
Yeah, the thing that escapes Knobs here is that it's not white men. It's that all male characters are portrayed as either dumb or evil, or both. That goes for what's his name? Pilot guy.
Yeah, Poe.
And then Poe.
Finn,
Poe.
Luke.
Yeah, Finn,
Kylo.
Finn is an idiot. Yeah.
Hux. Even Snoke. Even Snoke is pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
All the guards.
Akbar dies. If that counts.
All the guys are morons. Yeah, they're pretty dumb.
Yeah, it's not a race thing, Knobs. It's not a race thing here. Not here. Not here. They probably think that, but it doesn't stand out here in any way.
left of good white males in the franchise, certainly. A demographic that in the real world has constantly been outcasted and shunned from our society, especially lately. Luke is a figure from the older generation, a generation that's slowly dying out and being taken over by over-diversity, PC culture, and SJWism. Next is Finn, the token black guy. Not much else to say about him but that, because he really doesn't bring much to the table in this movie, besides his boring and pointless casino subplot. Oh, he almost sacrifices himself in the end, though, to save the resistance, but before he gets a chance to do anything significant, he's pushed out of the way and effectively cucked by his new girlfriend Rose, the token Asian in this movie, and probably its worst part. Rounding out the main cast, we got the
abusive
token Latin
woman,
man, pejoratively called Flyboy in this film.
The Star Wars-ness of this stuff makes these two really ridiculous in that you do, like I said, you do have this galaxy.
You know, as much as I don't like No BS, I don't disagree with most of what he said.
Yeah, yeah, because that was mostly the standard take.
That was like the dumbest scene ever. What did she say? We're not gonna defeat the ones we hate, but we're gonna save the ones we love, or something.
We're not going to win by killing the ones we hate, but by saving the ones we love.
Yeah, and then she steals a kiss from him while they should be killed.
While she has a brain hemorrhage or something? I don't know. She just faints.
Hopefully.
It was so retarded, dude.
And that nothing made sense there.
Like,
nothing made
Ryan,
sense.
do you know how getting a concussion works?
Ryan, do you know how speed works?
Yeah, physics.
Ryan, do you know how time
Does
works?
he even know how people work?
Dragging that.
Come on.
Finn dragged Rose back into the base faster than these fucking fly ships.
An approaching army.
To get to
yeah,
the fucking cannon. Like, do you think really the Imperials stood there and waited for Finn to drag Rose back all the way on foot across this salt desert? Just waiting?
Yeah,
Not shooting
why not?
anything? With the door
They're
open?
bad people, but they're polite.
Yeah, it's like, you know.
It's not more like, did they all watch down from their cockpits and thought, oh, look at these two idiots. Oh, look, they're running.
Yeah.
Oh, look, yeah, it's just watch them as they slowly move across the battle. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just trying to have fun.
What fucking pathetic idiots. It would have been more likely they would have been taken hostage at that point. But probably I would understand the Imperials going, oh, fuck these guys, I don't care anymore. Oh yeah.
Even just humans. But to you, the most outrageous thing is that some people who are humans aren't white in this insanely diverse galaxy. So if I'm speculating why these guys think diversity is politics, it is just, a visceral bigoted
You make
reaction.
politics out of it.
Where do you think it came from, Kavernacle? The
You
ether?
made it. It's your people, your political tribe that made it up in the first place. That's what I talked about before. There's all this quota bullshit, all the scissors in your head, the guilt tripping about we need to have more tokens. The left complained about tokenism in the 90s. Now all they do is tokenism. Because you do not care about the characters of people. You only care about the skin color.
Yep.
You
don't
people,
care. I just want- I
piss on MLK Jr.'s grave.
We can take away the entire race argument and just look at all the males in the story. And they're still incompetent or evil or, I don't know, idiots, stupid, dumb. I don't know how you want to
useless, cuckolds.
Everything they try to do fails. They never achieve
Gay.
anything.
And they're all horrible people. Luke is horrible. The decoder guy is horrible.
Even Yoda is a jerk.
Finn is played off as dumb and useless.
Yoda just comes out of nowhere. Oh, by the way, here's your lesson, Luke. I could have helped you like 30 years ago, but no, I'm going to do it now.
The plot tries to
Obi-Wan,
portray
even.
Poe as the dumb guy who needs to be put in his place, when actually he's the one making the most sense. That's really Kylo is a tantrum throwing child.
No one knows what he wants.
Snoke just makes the stupidest lines imaginable while being an absolute idiot.
Han Solo abandons his kid. He gives up.
Yeah, well, he's already dead in TLJ.
I know,
But yeah, it's just all horrible. And all the other and Hux is, of course, he's an Imperial, so that's already a bad guy.
Oh, then there's DJ.
And he's now an idiot all of a sudden, while
He's
in
an
TFA
opportunist.
he wasn't an idiot.
Yeah, it's all just, all the guys are just incompetent, dumb, evil. It's just, okay, whatever. At least DJ saves his own life, but he's still evil as a result of that.
He's an opportunist.
Yeah.
You could say he's neutral.
Well, that's kind of
He
his
doesn't
message.
give a shit.
Yeah,
He didn't. DJ didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So you see it, hate it, because you have these hateful beliefs. Doesn't really go too much deeper in these guys' case, I guess.
Projection.
They extend it a bit more. It's a grift where they create narratives about identity politics.
Who's grifting who here, Kavernacle?
More projection. More projection.
Wow. What's with
Narratives
this?
about identity. Who's making that shit up all the time? Who's talking about identity all the time?
Who quoted?
Who's making up narratives about identity and being oppressed and being oppressors all the fucking time? That's you, Kavernacle. You are projecting. You're a fucking tyrannical, brainwashing and brainwashed asshole.
Who brought up
By the
their?
way, sign
You
up
are
for
a
his
racist
Patreon.
and a sexist. You are a racist and a sexist.
I want to know.
You.
Does Jeremy bring up his Patreon halfway through a video? He's like, by the way, guys, do you want to devote? Like, I'm gonna put some orange chocolate boxes on my desk if we get more than 35 subs. It's like, dude, why are you talking about this thing?
Support me, guys.
Who's grifting
Yeah,
who?
and you're really shit at this whole communism shit when you have to ask for money all the time. Okay, well, that's actually how communist countries work. But, dude, if you hate capitalism so much, you are doing a lot of capitalist shit, you know?
And he's
Live the dream, boy. Live the dream.
Go off the grid
Make a commune somewhere.
Yeah, make
Go
a
start
commune
farming.
in the middle of
Farming
a
your own
forest
food. Yeah.
and just live off the land. See how you do.
Yeah, just do it. Maybe in a year you get a pumpkin.
Maybe
Then
he's
you can
afraid of
eat it for a
toxic
week,
masculinity.
and then you wait another year for another pumpkin. Then you can eat again for a week. Maybe you get a pumpkin if you're really, really good. But more likely you just die.
About this, taking over everything, about cultural Marxism, about all this different stuff. But at its
What?
core, you can tell these guys are getting pretty heated and angry about just the diversity on the surface level.
Okay, you want to
You
know
are
why?
the one obsessing with diversity on a surface level.
The reason
You don't care about the characters of people or what they think.
the reason
You are the one obsessed with the surface level of races and sexes and all of that shit.
the reason
and
why
who fucks what into what orifice.
the reason why they mention
Probably
this
check us-
deduction is because we've got not only myself but Jeremy and I'm sure other Star Wars focused channels have talked about the problems with the story and the characters and the plots and how broken they are. And they come to the conclusion after all this that someone upstairs, some writer, some producer, some director, whatever, said this is the way it's going to be. We're going to do this scene. And everyone was with it. Everyone went for it. And that's where we say that's the reason. Some mentality, some political ideology, someone upstairs said so. Therefore, this is the way it is.
And which this you said this video is from 3 days ago or something?
Yeah.
This shit has been not just admitted years ago already by Kennedy herself. Now that more leaks out of her writing group for Star Wars that produced shit like the High Republic. This is the whole goal. Writing characters like Luke out of Star Wars, erasing him from Star Wars so that there's not this male hero. That's why they destroy him. That's why they target him. And Rian Johnson was Kennedy's pet. That's why you got this TLJ really extreme in that direction.
They're into
These
that
people
SM
admit
shit.
these things. They admit these things. And you, Kavernacle, apparently either you didn't hear it or you ignore it. And this is, again, a point where I bring up, read fucking George Orwell's essays, Notes on Nationalism. You can get it from Penguin Press. There's a series called Modern from 1984, ironically. Costs £1. It costs £1. If you order it online, probably 3 or 4 at this point. But buy that book, read it, and you will think of all these scenes here. This is communist nationalism, what Kavernacle is espousing. He doesn't give a shit about any fact that makes his side look weak. He ignores it, or he talks it down. And he will prop up every positive instance that he can think of for his position and everything weakening the other, and will ignore everything positive about anything that is not his position, that is not his nationalism for communism. That's all this is. That's why we cannot ever get through to him, because he's not rationally thinking. He's not operating on rationality. He's operating on a faith-based nationalism for his ideology.
Let's just be clear. We did try reaching out to him. I mean, every time we post on Twitter when we're doing a new Smudcast, in this case, it was Zach who actually had some conversations with him on direct chat, and he wouldn't talk to us or talk to Zach because he didn't have a channel above 100K subs. So
That was his excuse.
So he's an opportunist because he wants to be a bigger YouTuber. He just wants more money.
Yeah, that makes you the grifter, Kavernacle.
Wow, that was really stupid.
Like Zach was just being
That makes you a
extremely polite.
parasite, Kavernacle.
Zach showed me the tweets. He was just like, "Hey, we disagree. I'd love to chat with you. Like, this is something I would say, Zach. If you're going to do it nicely. Like, be kind and courteous." He did that, and Zach was like, "Oh my God, what's going on? I just wanted to have a chat." And he was just, "Well, you're nobody. I don't want to talk to you. You don't have come back to me if you're big." Like all these weird responses, where
He's afraid of the little guy.
he didn't want to talk about his beliefs or his opinions because we're too small, or Zach was too small, or whatever the case was. Which is funny because we did have what's his face on before, which was I wouldn't call a friend of Vosh, but Xanderhall. Yeah, I said, okay, fine. He's in chat. We'll bring him on. He seems friendly. He was generally friendly until he started talking about Jeremy, and then he was calling him a woman hater, and making the argument that just because he's married doesn't mean he's not a misogynist. You're like, wait.
Okay. I think I remember that. You guys were talking about the SJWs are upset about Star Wars or something.
Well, we were covering Kavernacle's video. That's why. So I thought it's only fair to bring him on. Like, okay, fine, cool. He was in the chat. He was friendly enough. I don't mind that. But man, he was just, and he was saying, well, I do blood sports online. It's like, no, you don't. Who have you chatted to where you have a debate, an actual debate that's intelligent? Because all you want to do is just make fun of someone. I think he had Lauren Southern on. Not Lauren Southern. Who was it?
Okay.
Was it her? She wrote a book recently.
I don't know.
It was someone like that.
Many people write books lately.
Yeah, and he read the book. He liked it. And like, really, you liked a right-wing leaning person. And you were promoting her book on your channel. It was like, and everyone was like taking offense to that. Like, why did he do that? Oh my God. Promoting the enemy. Like, oh, it's like, what? He liked the book. What's wrong with that? He seems like a nice guy who's confused and doesn't know what to think. And he reads a book and he likes it. And oh no, he's with the enemy now.
Yeah, of course. His thoughts have
He
been
has white
tainted.
guilt,
He is now tainted by wrongthing. He must be ostracized. He must be exterminated.
Yeah, it's just weird because like they seem to forget that they're white themselves.
Well,
like, I don't know.
I
It's just
don't
weird.
mind it that they have alternate thoughts in their minds, and they actually admit, yeah, this is a good thought. This makes sense. It's like, thanks. It's not hard.
Yeah, they are capable of growing out of it. I believe most people are. But this quasi-religious structure is completely inhibiting that process. It's a trap. It's a mind trap. And then, aside from the logical mind trap, you have the whole social trap around that. Because when you leave this thing, when you criticize it, you will be ostracized. It means you will be alone. That means you will have all your social contacts that you've had within this ideological bubble. They will suddenly be gone. And that's what people fear. They don't just fear the repercussions of the mob turning on them. They fear being alone without all the connections they've had before.
Well, whatever you do, go to the Kavernacle's comment section, read some of those comments, and you'll see the kind of people he attracts and why he keeps doing what he's doing. That's pretty much how it goes down. So, anyway, fun times listening to these folks. We're not even halfway done. Jeez. Okay, let's keep going.
And think the diversity in itself is pushing a political message when it's not. You can have diversity without a left-wing political agenda, and of course, someone who's on the...
You can have diversity without a left-wing political agenda, but that is when it is done right, when it's not done for tokenism, when just competent people happen to show up, and they have random traits. That's like Star Trek TNG.
Like good authors.
Didn't deliberately have characters of this race and that race in a show while meeting some other aliens. They just did things.
I remember the first trade paperback of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. It had a lesbian couple. I think one of them was a star, and then she gave that up to raise her kid or something like that. And that was the focus of the narrative because she wanted revenge on Morpheus, and that's what caused this whole stuff. And that was that. It was just, it felt natural. I was like, oh, this is great. I like this story. It had nothing to do with women power or I'm, this or that, or it's just like, no, it's just a woman. That's it.
Oh, the original Sandman run even had it wasn't the easiest read, but it had a believable enough trans story in it. It's in the, I think it's in the last third of the whole thing. With there is someone who seems to have gender dysphoria, although it comes a bit across like a crossdresser. But I think it was a genuine gender dysphoric. And
that's Neil Gaiman. He does these things. He puts. He's very left leaning anyway, but he's not a bad writer. He makes it believable. And he
plays around with the ideas,
and
with the ideas in these circles, like the other short story in Fragile Things I mentioned. that thing is okay written if you don't know anything about the topic. It is well written if you believe in the left-wing variant of all this crap. And it is, I personally found it repulsive because it seemed to make a mockery out of my condition. But that wasn't Gaiman's intention. I understand that. He was playing around with an idea, and that is an understandable concept. Like, it could have been. In a way, it was a science fiction story. But other than that, if you like Neil Gaiman, even though I harp on that story, buy Fragile Things. It's a wonderful collection of Neil Gaiman's short stories. I just don't like that particular one.
Yeah, my go-to at talking about, I wouldn't say transgenderism, but this is a weird story to begin with. It's Neil Shusterman's third book in the Scythe trilogy, where everyone from Madagascar, like this is in the future where everyone has, like nanotechnology is a thing and death is not a thing. So it's called Scythe because there's people who actually go around killing people because humanity is overpopulated. So everyone from Madagascar, for whatever reason, believe in their heart that they feel that they are a woman in the morning and a man in the evening, which is retarded. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
It is like when I read that, I was like, that's okay. I mean, you could say that as a simple thought experiment, but when you think about it in detail, it's like, wait a second, what if you walk around in school in the locker room and you're taking your clothes off and you notice things like, wait a second, what is that?
I can imagine that as some religious cultural thing that people are brought up in, but then that would something detached from biology.
Like the words would pop up, it's like, that's a penis, like, all these natural things would come up and it'd be like, okay, this is not practical, this would not happen this way. And they just ran with it. And I was like, okay, Neil, you've lost me a bit because he's really good at writing. But when he writes an entire island of people that think this way, I'm like, okay, that's too much. You've gone beyond.
If you bring up something that out of this world, you need to explain a bit how that works because I have a hard time buying it.
And they go into some detail, but not enough. It's kind of odd. And to have a romantic relationship thus as a result of that was with one of the main characters, I'm like, whoa, okay, something's up here. And
okay, that's
yeah, it's confusing. Anyway.
I am not mad at Neil Gaiman of not getting this issue. That's because it's so there's just so much bullshit out there.
Oh yeah, Neil Gaiman, like the stories he writes are great. So these little things like that are like little blemishes. It's the same with Scythe, the third book. It's like, this is great except this one character. Everything else is great. I love it. So that's when it's like, yeah, I could forgive stupid shit. People write stupid shit. It happens. Even great writers.
Yep. I'm someone who's on the left wing. There are liberals who are very pro-diversity.
Wait a second. What's the difference?
That was the topic.
What's the difference between a liberal and a left wing? There's a difference? Like I don't
even... Of course.
I don't know. I don't care. But,
A liberal is not an authoritarian. Socialists, however, have to be authoritarian. You cannot be socialist without being authoritarian. You cannot be a communist without being authoritarian. The whole term anarcho-communist is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. The problem of the left wing, when he calls himself left wing, he essentially admits and this distances himself from liberals, which would be left-wing libertarians or left-wing liberals, contrary to the right-wing liberals. He says that he is a left-wing authoritarian, which we see in his whole apologia and trying to enforce that we abide by his rules and his standards and that we need to accept his understanding of how diversity needs to be. We need to accept his tokenism. We need to accept his pandering about trans issues that make absolutely no sense in reality. He's an authoritarian. You probably, whether he thinks of himself as that or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Here is...
But Yeah, they're all dictators.
Here's
in the making.
Tyler Preston. The slice of life manga family compo featured in realistic depiction of transgender. The difference that and the albino twins is that the manga portrayed the trans character as normal people and not cardboard cutouts that only exist for mud diversity.
Yes. Thank you.
If you're going to have a character who's questioning their gender or their identity, work with the idea. Don't just say, okay, I like guns. I don't know how to fire guns. Maybe I should learn. And then you just drop that topic and have them play with cats. It doesn't make sense. Have them address an issue that has possible conflict or interest in the character's development. Don't just serve me plates of food and then take them away. I want to consume it. I want to taste it. I want to know where it's going. So these ideas, you don't just throw them at the audience and forget about it. You work with them. So that's writing in general, not just, I could say that to Johnson. I could say that to pretty much all the Star Wars authors. There's some weak writing in Star Wars aside from the KOTOR series. Anyway.
I do not agree with liberals on much. So even if you say you have to be, I guess, centrist to want diversity, there is still a broad spectrum of people on, the left who like diversity and want more diverse stories because it's more interesting to represent more people and get stories
you're not representing people. Tokenism.
That's
Kavernacle.
Okay.
Tokenism is not representing anyone.
Diversity by itself.
It's just tokenism. It's just cardboard cutouts that you can jerk off to because you can tell yourself, oh, look, a white person and a black person and an Asian and a woman. This is so amazing.
Do you guys want to watch a TV
what is
show
the story about?
With white
and then you ask,
and black and Chinese people just because they're white, black, and Chinese? Like, don't you really want to watch that show? I know I don't.
And then I ask you, Kavernacle, what's that show about that you're jerking off to? Well, there's a black guy and a white guy and an Asian woman and a gay and a trans non-binary swamp gender and but what's the story about?
It's about how
nothing.
Diverse we are.
and that's nothing. That's why I call it fetishism. That is not what diversity is, you idiot. We want characters, we want people. And if we see competent people, and competent, kind, honest people, we do not give a shit what they look like, which means we will naturally end up with groups that are, by your definition, diverse. And if you, Kavernacle, had ever looked into these so horribly reactionary places, servers, communities, whatever, all these streams that cover your bullshit and that of your breadtube friends, you would And you would actually look into it. It's not just in the cast, it's also in the cast members and in the places themselves. There are tons of gay people, trans people who all disagree with you on your bullshit. Lots of black people, some from Africa, some from the US, Asians from all over the place. Women. Actual women.
Yes.
And all of this stuff that you complain about, that's all there in those so reactionary anti-diversity places. Because those places are the diversity you are so jealous of. Because your socialist bullshit is very, very racially homogeneous. Isn't that kind of telling?
Mm-hmm. I mean, hasn't there been diversity in the past 50 years?
Yeah, but it was.
Why is he acting like it's a new thing?
Yeah, but it's because the left revived the racism because it turned into an almost solved issue in the 90s.
I mean, would he actually not like black TV shows or black stories because they're not diverse enough?
Right?
Like what? Like Bill Cosby?
That's a good
Well,
point. Yeah.
there's been all sorts of black
The
TV shows,
Jeffersons.
the Billions. There's all these like mob stories and what have you for the black community or about the black community or just black people in general living in America or what have you. Would that be bad because they're not racially diverse enough?
No.
Yeah,
Perfect.
but okay. Going by the definition of racially diverse, which is often racially homogeneous, because the diverse really just means no white people.
Yes.
Because the Cosby Show, Family Matters, and what was the third one I had in my mind?
Jefferson.
Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
Beloved shows in their time and in parts even holding up today, and they're all beloved by everyone, not just by black people. And by the definition of the left today, racially diverse. I mean, it's just African Americans, but by their definition, racially diverse, and everybody loved it. And it helped bring the people together, because when everybody loves it, you show these are all normal people who care about family and all the other issues.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is something that seems to be lacking in the black urban community of the United States. Not with immigrants from Africa. Like, I recently talked with a Nigerian who moved to the US, and he is just baffled by how racist the blacks in America are and how close-minded they are and how they are obsessed with Africa while knowing absolutely nothing about it.
Wow. Yeah.
We also talked
That's
about
sad.
because we also talked about the different myths and gods of Africa, that the all these people here who are obsessed with African culture, blah, blah, my heritage, blah, and they know nothing of it. They just want to put black characters into all the traditionally, if you will, American fairy tales, or rather, well, there are some. You could say there are some original American fairy tales. I would have to think more about the topic, though. And the European fairy tales, and they have to put the black characters into all of that because they don't actually know anything of Africa. When we went over the, they don't know, they never heard the word Anansi in their lives before, even though Neil Gaiman wrote some fictional work about that in his American Gods universe. I think it wasn't part of that. So long that I read that, I forgot most of it. It's a good reason to read it again. And we talked about the Thunder Gods. I forgot the name at the moment. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can dig up in Africa. Hollywood could make movies about that. They could make fairy tales and fantastic fantasy movies about African mythology. But they're not doing that. Instead, they come up with this Wakanda shit.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah, and Wakanda just paints a bunch of black people as really shitty, hyper-nationalist assholes that leave the rest of their continent in shambles and poverty and famine. While sitting on all the riches. Like, this should be the one thing that the whole BLM stuff should be condemning the hell out of. The socialists should be condemning the hell out of. And just holy shit. No, but they love it. They love it because it's on their side. Because the whole this whole empire shit. And this whole, Wakanda has a wall. That is actually, they don't care about these topics. Not really. They only care about, is something done in accordance with their core beliefs, which is black people good, communism good. If you fulfill that, the thing is good. And no critique, no negative point counts. Read Notes on Nationalism. I will repeat that 30 times more.
All right, let's keep going, guys.
Politics are very different in nearly every other aspect. Now, next you have the people who think this agenda is ruining the story just because they are trying to maybe shoehorn it in and make it really bad because they're trying to focus on these identity politics. It's sort of an extent.
No.
I don't think they want to make it bad. I think that's just a product of their inability to make anything good.
As a result of it being bad, they try to rationalize and deduce why. And they go through the story, they go through the plot, they go through the progression of it, everything, and they go, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. How did it get in there? The writer put it that way. Why? And you ask the writer, you ask the author, you ask the director, you ask the producer, and they all say the same thing. Well, this is exactly what we wanted. We all agreed on this, yada, yada. Everyone's within agreement. The writer's room, everything was fine. Then you say, if everyone was in agreement, that they'd all be thinking the same way, which was we need a really strong female character, and they didn't know how to do that. So they say they make her Superman. We'll make her amazing, and everyone else sucks.
We just give her powers, and around her everyone turns dumber. Okay, we make a Mary Sue.
Yeah. Why not?
And we can't let her get hurt. Because Mary Sues don't get hurt.
And the deduction thus becomes this is all politically motivated. This is all agenda-driven. We don't know what the agenda is. We know there's some politics in there. There could be other reasons aside from make money, which is obvious. But if it's just to put people in seats, well, you're doing it a backwards way if you're getting people out of seats in the next films and the next films.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And in the end, we, according to the leaked numbers, Star Wars under Disney finally made negative. What I heard was about 30 million at the time.
Solo was the flop. That was the major flop for many reasons.
Yeah. That's. But I mean, right now, Star Wars is costing Disney more than it ever made.
Oh, right. That's the theme parks.
Because they're now losing.
Right.
They're now really losing money on Star Wars.
Well,
and that is why they're now waking up and going, okay, what actually made money? Mandalorian. Okay. Kennedy was against that. Kennedy was for all the stuff that lost us money. Get her the fuck out. She played long enough. She didn't learn. She didn't get better. Now, finally. It's only when the company is about to fucking die that they get a grip on themselves. Disney is big enough and their portfolio diverse enough that they can afford going bankrupt in one area and then refund that with all the other stuff. So they can revive Star Wars, but that depends on what they're gonna do. Kennedy cannot have control, and none of the cronies. Otherwise, it's impossible.
Pretty much like voting with your dollars, right?
In a way, yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is, and that's why social justice propaganda is always failing, because people don't like it. And I'll tell you, Kavernacle, I'll tell you one thing. Because what you want, all these token stories, this is tokenism. Because none of what you want is ever about characters, ever about worth of a person, of a philosophy of a person, of personality. It's only ever about superficial traits. That's all you talk about, Kavernacle. Listen to yourself. That is tokenism, and I call it fetishism. Because you are obsessed with it. You only see that. And fetish stories belong on fetish websites. Not on the big screen, on the big franchise. That's how you kill that. Fetish stories are for the niche. They are porn. Even if they're not sexual fetishes. Sexual in the sense of, in the meaning of people having sex with each other. But you are getting a form of arousal out of them. That's why it's a fetish to you. You get your dopamine rush from it. And you lack that dopamine rush if you don't see your token group of all the races.
Because everything's political.
Why it's a fetish.
Everything has to be
You're
political
obsessed,
in his mind.
You're addicted.
Anyway, we haven't talked about The Last of Us yet, so I'm wondering where we're getting there.
Point. Although some of these people try and apply logic rather than just having, a gut reaction, And you could see this.
More
with the-
projection.
What was that? Let's
Wait,
go
huh?
back.
Wait.
Hold
Oh
on.
my god, no, worse. He said something correct.
Let me hear this.
Because they are trying to maybe shoehorn it in and make it really bad because they're trying to focus on these identity politics. It's sort of an extension of the first point, although some of these people try and apply logic rather than just having, a gut reaction. And you could see this with the backlash to The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I really like this game. I actually made a video about...
Wait. So
Wow,
his
okay.
criticism of the non-SJWs is the attempt at logic instead of just feeling. Really?
Apparently that's bad.
Kavernacle, you are the enemy of reason. You even admit it.
Well,
God.
if you like The Last of Us Part 2 as a story, I think you're already the enemy of reason, but that's,
Yeah, but he is literally saying it word for word.
You should have a gut reaction when you watch media. It's like, why?
You need to let your feelings you need to let your emotions control you, basically.
My gut reaction about this stuff is also bad. Kavernacle. And I'm not trying to backwards reason my gut reaction into being right.
How dare centrists use logic? What a horrible group of people.
I think maybe it's jealousy because he can't.
Why can't you just feel good?
Why can't you just like my ideology? You just want to make utopia happen.
Why can't you just like the stuff I like? Why can't you feel what I feel when I watch the show?
It's like, well, that works both ways, buddy. It's like, come on.
Yeah, why can't you hate what I hate? There's all these reasons and feelings.
That's why you need to have logic. Otherwise, we're just...
It's just a random series of emotions. Oh, look at shiny thing.
Yeah.
Look at sun. Look at ball of fire in sky. Ow. I don't like fire. Fire bad. Wait, I do like fire. Fire cook food. Oh, I am confused. Why do I... Yeah.
Fire's part
the
of
anti-SJW reaction to this game. But basically, before it released, it was rumoured that Abby actually might be a transgender character. Abby is not a transgender character, but it was rumoured that they were going to be. But there is a
the way
transgender
she
character in the
looked,
game.
it was the
Power
obvious
lifter.
interpretation. I thought it was a trans character because that's a buff guy, so it's maybe a trans man who's building up his muscles. Because
I thought it was a guy.
Yeah, and because a trans woman is usually not trying to build up muscle, unless you are so in denial of your gender dysphoria that you go into a hypercompensation for it and work out hard. There are cases like that, and they usually come crashing at some point, which is often not ending well. But yeah. Abby doesn't make sense in any way, not in writing, not in logic, not in any sense. And yeah, I thought when I just saw the screenshots, I thought this was supposed to be a trans character. Why wouldn't I?
It's not just
Abby doesn't look like a woman.
Yeah, it's not just the main characters. It's the side. It's the secondary as well as the tertiary characters that don't make sense. Even the mayor. I don't know if she's the mayor, Maria, whatever her name is, of the town, just lets these people go, even though they know they're out for revenge, and she doesn't want them to do that. It's just this crazy thing that they let these two teenagers go out and go kill some dudes, like not just some dudes, but like a whole bunch of dudes, and she's aware of it. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, you're letting them go.
Wasn't it because her husband ran out?
Yeah,
whatever?
she's letting two teenage girls go in and save her husband, who's on a quest for revenge. It's like, wouldn't you take, like, I don't know, adults, other guys, people who know better than they do? It's like, no. Get the other revenge-driven person and her lover to go with. Yeah, great idea.
Well, Ellie was taught by Joel, so obviously that makes her perfect.
She's perfect. Oh yeah, she'll talk Tommy out of it. Yeah, for sure. She'll just grab him. Yeah, let's go back home. Come on. Here is Bear Business 1. But how did it make you feel? Thanks for the content. Yeah, I know. That's what it's all about.
Did you feel sexually aroused?
He's just proving my point.
Yeah.
Called and a lot of the story is about the relationship between Abby and Lev. It also has a little side part of his.
Half the story at most.
Did he say it was about Abby and Lev?
Yeah, that's like maybe half.
Oh my god!
I would say no, not a half. Maybe 35%, maybe at most. Okay, because half the story is Ellie. No, 40. Was it 40%? It's hard to gauge how what is dedicated to what because there's so many subplots. But near the end of the story, it's focused on Lev and Abby a bit. It's true.
His story, his main arc, is about him being transgender.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Tyler McDonald said in the chat, I'm willing to bet Abby was supposed to be, meaning trans, until they realized making a ripped trans woman might offend their woke Twitter overlords. I thought that same thing back then.
Okay, well, the thing is, the trailer, when you watch the original trailer where they showcased Abby, she looked like a strong girl. Like, she wasn't thin. She was strong. Like, she had muscle. In the next trailer, as well as the game, they buffed her up. She has bulging muscles. So they took a strong-looking girl. Like, she was tied up in a noose and, she was struggling and what have you. And it's like, oh, wow, who is this? Is this Ellie's mom? Who is that? We had no idea.
Senator Armstrong's daughter.
Yeah.
Enhanced with nanomachines.
And then you get the second trailer, and it's like this massive arm. You're like, wait a second. How did this happen?
Well, someone explain how Lev's trans, because like from my understanding, he just shaves, or I don't even know, but
yeah, she
shaves her head or something.
It's different because they're in this cult. The whole group they're in, they associate. Okay, you're going to be this, and you're going to be that, and women do this, and boys do that. And she wanted to be a hunter, and they said, no, you're going to go marry one of the elders or whatever and have kids, and that's your role. And she didn't want to do that. Especially because she didn't identify as a female, so only hunters shave their heads, and those are males. So
you can't tell that story without the trans thing, and then it becomes a relatively common story all throughout humanity.
But how is it trans? I don't understand that.
It's just that is not trans, and I haven't played Last of Us 2, I don't intend to. I don't want to pay money for that game and don't spend time on it, to be honest, after all the shit I've seen. I don't want to spend any time with the character of Abby.
You don't want to spend 20 hours playing both sides?
Well, it's 30 hours. It's 30 hours. It's really long.
30? My God.
So I can't really talk on the detail of that particular thing with Lev. But the general idea of you have your roles in a society that are necessary for survival of the tribe, because it's a very small community. And you have this one kid that wants to do an individualist thing. Like, I don't want to do the role I'm assigned to by the tribe. I want to do my own thing. That's one of the most common stories of growing up. However, need to keep my thoughts together. It's getting late. However, the whole setting here is post-apocalypse with zombies. There are only a few people alive. That usually means, in any society that wants to survive, we need the women to breed. As horrible as that may sound to you, that's how repopulation works. And that is also why Islam got into this 4 wives thing. Multiple wives thing, because at some point they lost so many men in their wars that there simply were too many widows left over and too few men left over. So that was then easier to repopulate. That's where that comes from.
Well, either way, I don't think Lev is her real name. She had a previous female name, and she changed it to Lev and all this other jazz. So she identifies as a male, which is fine.
Maybe that's in there. I cannot judge whether that comes across as a real gender dysphoria story or
there's
it's
no
just a
room.
bad SJW writing. I would bet on the latter because I don't expect SJWs to write these things anyway.
No, there's
well,
there's
or
no
properly
room
or
for
realistic.
a secondary character to be fleshed out like that. They do focus on them, but it's mostly the relationship between Lev and Yara, and they're trying to protect each other because they're brother or sister and sister, and they're just fighting because their mom is so crazy. Their mom is just like they get into a fight, and Lev has to kill her mom, essentially.
And I'd say the following on that whole thing. This is a post-apocalypse world where survival is the most vital part. Civilization has broken down. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. Gender dysphoria, yes, it drives you to suicide eventually when it goes on for way too long, which is a couple decades. It is not, and I've had a pretty intense case of it, it is not something that you will bother with in your teens when all you can care about is survival. In a zombie apocalypse, you don't have time to bother with this trans bullshit. Seriously. That's where you just suck it up and just go forward.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. There are people who do that anyway, even now.
It can get scary.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, you seriously don't have time for that. And it's just bullshit.
Also have a
That's
gay
why the stuff doesn't make sense.
And
It's
massive
just- it's why it's
spoilers,
too hard
don't
in.
watch anymore, don't listen to what I'm going to say right now, but in the end, they also have a child together. Now, supposed mega fans of the first game...
Wait. No.
Mega fan.
Lev and Abby don't have a child together. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they don't. Well, whose child was it?
It was the
Nina's
dead.
child, right?
It was
Because
Sperm Boy,
she
the
banged,
dead Asian
Joe, right?
Asian Joel. Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Well, I don't know. Because they replaced him, right, from the trailer.
Yeah, he got what's her name pregnant, and she wasn't sure. Then she was aware. She didn't tell Ellie, and then she got sick. And you're like, oh no. So then they went home after the second attempt. Sorry, the first attempt at trying to kill Abby, and then she has the nightmares, and they're on the farm, and she has to leave and go after Abby again. And yeah, it's a sad story with Ellie. But I don't know why he brought that up. That has nothing to do with any of the thing he was referring to. Like Dina has the baby, but it's not Ellie's baby. It's just she's just in love with her, so she raises it together. By that time, the guy's dead who fathered him. So
That could have been the ending, but no, we have to drag out the story.
yeah, it gets dragged
of
out.
Revenge
Yep.
further and further, and oh my god.
So not sure
So
why he
bloated.
brought that up. Like it's like yeah, two women are raising a child. It's like what does that have anything to do with transgenders? I don't like what.
Nothing.
Anyway,
It's not
That
transgender.
the second game was getting caught up in like left-wing politics, trying to push a political agenda, seemingly
Didn't Druckman
oblivious
admit to
the
that?
fact that there are free gay...
essentially, he had a few. He had one big speech where he pretty much said the stuff he wanted to, and he was praising Anita Sarkeesian. So
Oh god.
kind of obvious.
I don't like what I see.
Yeah, it was one of those.
Kavernacle, are you really not knowing any of this, or are you gaslighting?
I think he's lying or he's just making shit up because this is really available online.
Characters in the first Last of Us, this was back in 2013, Ellie, Riley, and Bill. And the Bill stuff is kind of hard to miss. I guess with the Ellie and Riley stuff, you've got to...
No, it's really easy to miss. He's a side character.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was gay for most of
You have to read this
The
one
time I
specific
played the
letter. Yeah, you have to read this one specific diary of his. It's like you don't have to read it. And even then, you just have to go through it to continue. You know, it's man, dude. Did you play the games?
No, he didn't. He just wants
I
to...
didn't. I admit
guess
I
it.
didn't.
play the DLC. So let's just say you at least have one explicitly gay male character in the first Last of Us. Now in the second one, you
Explicitly by virtue of a diary. Fantastic.
have two.
By the
and
way,
you
he
have
was a badass. They didn't have to focus on his sexuality.
They didn't. It was just a mention in a diary. It's like, what? Like, it's not even an issue. Like,
Yeah, he just happened to be gay.
he could have been
Oh,
interesting.
he's gay, by the way.
Yeah, he could have had any other hobby or any other interest. It's like, so what?
transgender character as well. Now here is Lauren Chen and Jeremy again talking about why this basically ruined The Last
Okay,
of Us.
can we
have
pause
a
for a moment? Because I would go into, because he brought this up again and again. And I would just like to read a passage from the book I keep mentioning, from George Orwell, Notes on Nationalism, in which he explains the 3 key features of what he calls nationalism, due to lack of a better word. Because there's in no language there seems to be one existing to describe this actual phenomenon that we're dealing with. It's just the closest one he had at the time. Because there's elements of tribalism, there's elements of jingoism, favoritism, all of that, but it's not just that. And those 3 elements are obsession, instability, and indifference to reality. And indifference to reality is the one I would just like to read the first few lines of it, because I think it gives an idea what is going on here. And that is, all nationalists have the power of not seeing resemblances between similar sets of facts. A British Tory will defend self-determination in Europe and oppose it in India, with no feeling of inconsistency. Actions are held to be good or bad, not on their own merits, but according to who does them. And there is almost no kind of outrage. Torture, the use of hostages, forced labor, mass deportations, imprisonment without trial, forgery, assassination, the bombing of civilians, which does not change its moral color when it is committed by our side. The liberal News Chronicle published as an example of shocking barbarity photographs of Russians hanged by the Germans, and then a year or 2 later published with warm approval almost exactly similar photographs of Germans hanged by the Russians. It is the same with historical events. History is thought of largely in nationalist terms, and such things as the Inquisition, the tortures of the Star Chamber, the exploits of the English buccaneers, Sir Francis Drake, for example, who was given to sinking Spanish prisoners alive, the Reign of Terror, the heroes of the Mutiny blowing hundreds of Indians from guns, or Cromwell's soldiers slashing Irish women's faces with razors, become morally neutral or even meritorious when it is felt that they were done in the right cause. If one looks back over the past quarter of a century, one finds that there was hardly a single year when atrocity stories were not being reported from some part of the world. And yet, in not one single case were these atrocities. In Spain, Russia, China, Hungary, Mexico, Amritsar, Smyrna, believed in and disapproved of by the English intelligentsia as a whole. Whether such deeds were reprehensible, or even whether they happened, was always decided according to political predilection. The nationalist not only does not disapprove of atrocities committed by his own side, but he has a remarkable capacity for not even hearing about them. For quite 6 years, the English admirers of Hitler contrived not to learn of the existence of Dachau and Buchenwald. And those who are loudest in denouncing the German concentration camps are often quite unaware or only very dimly aware that there are also concentration camps in Russia. Huge events like the Ukraine famine of 1933 involving the deaths of millions of people have actually escaped the attention of the majority of English Russophiles. Many English people have heard almost nothing about the extermination of German and Polish Jews during the present war, written in 1945. Their own anti-Semitism has caused this vast crime to bounce off their consciousness. In nationalist thought, there are facts which are both true and untrue, known and unknown, A known fact may be so unbearable that it is habitually pushed aside and not allowed to enter into logical processes. Or, on the other hand, it may enter into every calculation and yet never be admitted as a fact, even in one's own mind. Every nationalist is haunted by the belief that the past can be altered. He spends part of his time in a fantasy world in which things happen as they should, in which, for example, the Spanish Armada was a success, or the Russian Revolution was crushed in 1918. He will transfer fragments of this world to the history books whenever possible. Much of the propagandist writing of our time amounts to plain forgery. Material facts are suppressed, dates altered, quotations removed from their context and doctored so as to change their meaning. Events which, it is felt, ought not to have happened are left unmentioned and ultimately denied. In 1927, Chiang Kai-shek boiled hundreds of communists alive, and yet within 10 years he had become one of the heroes of the left. The realignment of world politics had brought him into the anti-fascist camp, and so it was felt that the boiling of the communists didn't count, or perhaps had not happened. The primary aim of propaganda is, of course, to influence contemporary opinion, but those who rewrite history do probably believe with part of their minds that they are actually thrusting facts into the past. When one considers the elaborate forgeries that have been committed in order to show that Trotsky did not play a valuable part in the Russian Civil War, it is difficult to feel that the people responsible are merely lying. More probably, they feel that their own version was what happened in the sight of God, and that one is justified in rearranging the records accordingly. Indifference to objective truth is encouraged by the sealing off of one part of the world from another, which makes it harder and harder to discover what is actually happening. There can often be a genuine doubt about the most enormous events. For example, it is impossible to calculate within millions, perhaps even tens of millions, the number of deaths caused by the present war. The calamities that are constantly being reported, battles, massacres, famines, revolutions, tend to inspire in the average person a feeling of unreality. One has no way of verifying the facts, one is not even fully certain that they have happened, and one is always presented with totally different interpretations from different sources. And then he follows with more examples.
Whew. Yeah, sounds like Orwell to me.
That was great. Honestly.
Yeah.
That was well before he wrote 1984, I imagine.
I don't remember when he wrote 1984. Yeah. This was written in 1945, I think before the war ended.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you listen to this, reflect a bit on the things Kavernacle said.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's referencing these two people again, so I want to know what his point is this time.
Different standard for what I like to call good entertainment. I like things, that
yeah, so he's repeating this from the start of the video.
Are relatable, that make me laugh or cry, depending what it is. I like a compelling, thought-provoking story, that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, for these people, diversity, subverting expectations. And what's so interesting about this is that a lot of the time when these studios pander to activists, it blows up in their face, because these types of activists that they're trying to court are the types of people, I mean, they're Karens, right? They're never going to be satisfied, and they're always going to demand more from you, and it will never be enough. So why these studios even try to pander to them time after time, I still don't quite understand, but whatever.
Because
it's their
marketing
prerogative,
told
they can
them
do what
to.
they want.
But as we've been getting more information about this game, it has been pretty clear that it's going to be bogged down by what almost everything that gets popular gets bogged down by: identity politics and SJW nonsense, because this is what they do. If something is popular, if something has a platform, they want to interject that into whatever it is that has the platform. We've seen this over and over again from movies, we've seen it in certain games, and now we're seeing it potentially within the Last of Us 2.
Now again, this is playing into part of the first point, but basically saying that the diversity and the focus on diversity is pandering. and they're somehow, because of the changing times, they're trying to pander to an audience that maybe won't even like this stuff in the first place.
You want to
And
grow
it
a
makes
cult.
me laugh. Like, it feels like these guys don't understand how companies run. Since I've listened,
They
to
want to
tons
make
of-
money.
Wait a
You're not
second.
making them money. You're costing
Wait a
them money.
second. When Neil Druckman wrote
Yeah.
the story, he wasn't going, I'm going to make a lot of money with this. He's like, I want to write these characters because this is what I want.
Yeah. And he threw out an accomplished female writer out of the gaming industry, out of his company, because she had already written something, but it wasn't what he wanted. Neil Druckman fired a woman out of the also misogynistic gaming
This is
development,
This
blah, blah.
this is not very
Do
complicated.
you see the irony?
A writer wants to write something. The writer's room and editors go, okay, this is all right, and they go with it. They hope it makes a lot of money, as the hope everyone else on the team hopes it makes a lot of money, and it did. It was a well-produced game. Whether the story was any good is up to debate. I really don't, like, I could write a whole bunch of nonsense about characters and their emotions and their conflicts and their inner struggles, and they could be talking about jelly beans. It doesn't matter. If it's compelling enough and interesting enough to capture the audience in a post-apocalyptic world with zombies and guns, it can sell. You might think that's asinine.
But you may be confused about the numbers. The numbers were also propped up with them shoving it into special sales as extras.
Oh,
or
yeah,
as
there's all
bonus-free
kinds.
stuff.
It broke all kinds of records. It got all these awards. You're like, whatever.
The awards don't count. They just if it's SJW stuff, it gets awards.
I know
stamped
every
onto it.
time it gets awards. Well, it's the best-selling game ever. It's like, okay, come on.
It's the best racing game ever. Last of Us Part 2.
Give me a
It
character
just wins everything.
that I care about that makes sense, because a lot of problems happened in this game on both storylines that make you go, wait a second, why are we doing this now? Why am I controlling this person? I don't want to be this person or this character. I don't want to do the things they're doing. And it's so obvious what they were trying to do with Abby. It's like, oh, now we're going to know her side of the story. The person I hate. Oh, she has a family and she pets dogs. Oh.
Zebras.
She had a dad. Wow. We're
I thought
humanizing
his
her.
dad was going to kill a little girl, but okay.
Yeah, her dad was about to murder a girl, but that's okay because she's angry and she got revenge. Like, wait a second.
I was supposed to die in
It's
that
okay.
room.
It's okay when when his favorite character does it. Then we have to sympathize.
It's like the same thing. We want you to be conflicted about liking Abby. It's like, why? Why would you do that to the audience? It's like, hey, there's a great steak over here at the steakhouse. I'm going to put some shards of glass in there. It's a delicious looking steak. Here's some steak sauce. Doesn't that smell good and look good? Oh, what's that? You're bleeding? Oh, you got to watch out for that glass. It's like, why would you give that to the audience? Why would you make a story like that to consume?
God, thank God Uncharted ended before the nonsense came in.
It's a very strange way of trying to court an audience, honestly, when you're selling a product that is so well polished and is catering to the what is it, the blind and deaf, because they have all those controls and
Holy shit, you guys are still going.
Oh yeah. Wisp
Hi.
is here. Can't you tell?
How's it going? Yeah.
Anyway, let's hear what he has to say, because
I read a book in the meantime.
yeah.
Of interviews about both games. The idea for Bill to be gay actually came from the actor who played Bill, not from Neil Druckman and the writing team. And the same goes with Ellie. It actually came
Okay, wait a second. First off, no.
Why? Where?
This is not
Really?
this is not how writing works in video games or in scripts. When you write a script, that's like floor zero. Nothing has been done yet. You don't suddenly contact the actor and go, "Hey, what do you think about this gay character?" Or sorry, what do you think about this character? And he goes, "I think they should be gay." and then they go back to 0, and they rewrite everything, and they change everything up. This was a diary entry. This was written text on a page in the game. That is not a big deal. That is not a big emotional voice lines and this and that. Now he said Ellie, meaning the actress. What's her name? Let me see if he says it.
Ashley Johnson.
Yeah, Ashley Johnson.
I'm actually gonna hop
Same
off,
from
but I'll catch you
Ashton.
guys next time. Okay.
All right, later, man.
Herself,
Yeah.
not
Bye.
from Neil Druckman.
Okay, so I'm gonna read that one more time, and then I'll prove how he's wrong.
Actor who played Bill, not from Neil Druckman and the writing team. And the same goes with Ellie. It actually came from Ashley Johnson herself, not from Neil Druckman. So these are people who said it felt right that these characters were this way, and then the director and the writers of the game said that sounds like a good idea. Now they also talk about in Naughty Dog they had.
Okay, so it doesn't take much to do a search on this. Okay, I'll show it on screen. It's not a big deal, but it goes to show just how
Yes,
deluded
please.
he is. All right, so let me see if I can pull it up for you. Okay, so here's Ashley Johnson, and she's talking to Neil Druckman about the character Ellie, and this is the Left Behind DLC. All right, I sat down with Neil, and he told me what the story would be, and he just sort of said to me, "I think Ellie is gay. This is her story. I think Riley was her first love, and that's the story that I want to tell." And right then I was like, yeah, I'm on board. Let's do it. So this is Neil Druckman telling Ashley Johnson, I think Ellie is gay. And this is what, a 14-year-old girl or whatever? Like whatever age I don't even know what age she is in the first game. She's around there.
I don't know, 13, 14.
Yeah, she's really young. So there's nothing
That's
wrong
no
with
time where you take sexual orientation seriously.
Yeah, it's
Well, that
not
was the thing. It was a DLC. You didn't find out about Ellie's sexuality until the DLC came out.
right. But to say that the actor had any say in this, that you would go through the script writing, you would go through the game development, you would go through the programming, the bug testing, all this crap, and then all of a sudden hire the actor, sit them down and say, hey, what do you think about your character? Well, I think she's gay. Hey, you know what? Let's change everything. It doesn't work that way. You could
I know, he's just lying.
you could do stuff like, add some text on the screen, like a diary, like what they did with the other fellow in the first game. Like that's more believable if that were the case. But the actors are just actors. They are paid to say a line. Yeah, I'm on board. Let's do it. What the hell do you think she's going to say? No, I quit. This is not for me. I don't want to play a gay girl. Like, what? No. What do they care?
Maybe she should have.
She's an actress getting a paycheck. Like, why? Yeah, you want me to be a rock? I'll be a rock. Let's roll around on the ground. Okay, here we go. I'll motion capture a rock. No problem. Like, who cares? But to think that actors have any creative control in a script, unless, I don't know, maybe it's Hollywood. Maybe it's different in Hollywood, of course. But a video game script with Neil Druckmann? No, it's Neil. And this is Neil saying so. So anyway.
Yeah, Troy Baker doesn't care. He just wants to get paid.
Yeah. His
He
job.
may pretend like he cares.
It's their professional job to say the lines and go home.
Yep.
Not to write the lines. Or to tell the author, I think Joel is gay.
Joel should die in like 2 seconds. All right. Easiest paycheck ever.
So this took me a grand total of 20 seconds to Google search, and he's either lying or he's exaggerating what he read about the other actor about the guy.
No,
who
he's just bullshitting.
I don't know. I really don't know, because at this point the Kavernacle is a mystery to me.
I mean, actors can sometimes bring
Well, then he's
some
an idiot, then.
extra into the process, but that is not the case here.
No, it's not. Anyway, that was just something that irked me, because as soon as he said that, I was like, no, that's not how game development works.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have written proof. It was Neil Druckmann. So anyway, let's
Yes.
continue. I don't know how long you guys want to keep going, because this is like, ugh, so slow.
a high proportion of LGBT people, especially compared to many other workplaces. I think I read a study somewhere that the games industry does have quite a high proportion of LGBT people working in it compared to other industries.
Yeah, that means we can stop puffing the shit.
They spoke a lot about this character Lev, and the actor of Lev themselves is transgender as well. So they felt like it was an interesting story to tell. It's not the absolute focus of the game.
Okay, so did they get Lev, and then did they write the character of Lev as just a normal person? Then because it was we got to change the character now because Lev is the actress is transgender. It's like no.
Didn't they specifically want him to be transgender?
Is that some self-ID bullshit, or is that something noteworthy? And why do you need that? Why do you then need to make the character trans as well? Assuming it's giving the benefit of the doubt, the actor has the actual condition and is going through the motions. Why does the character have to be trans then as well?
Yeah,
that sounds like bullshit.
The actor is
because the point of acting is to act something that you're not.
Right. So in this case, the actor is in fact one of those trans actors. They take trans roles amazingly. So they played Gray Tal on Star Trek Discovery, which I guess is also trans. I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to Discovery.
And honestly, I think this is so narcissistic and histrionic. You just let's give me trans roles because I'm trans. You're disgusting. These characters are horribly written. They don't represent what we're actually going through. They don't give a shit about what we actually want. They just want to jack off to, it's a trans person.
I will say...
It's really... I don't think they care about the trans thing in any way, really. It's just that they get this dopamine rush of the ideology tells me I need to like this. And when I see it, I jack off like a Pavlovian dog.
I will say you do feel sympathy for Lev and her sister because of what they go through, but you feel sympathy for everyone in that story.
That's okay.
Because
that's okay.
It's a violent
kid. Like, how do you not feel sympathy?
Yeah, so it's not hard to care, and if they have problems figuring out what they are, it's like such a minor issue. The fact that they killed their mom, and their mom was about to kill them, like it's like holy shit.
I think that's overloading the story rather, and
it is confusing.
The general issue I have with all of this is supposed to be a post-apocalypse world where most of humanity is gone, where we have this zombie apocalypse shit going on, and you have left an unlikely amount of gays and lesbians and trans people. Like, how is this humanity supposed to survive, even if it had the magical cure? There are too many people who will never reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
This civilization is dead. Just don't bother with saving anyone. This is over.
Throw our 2 female teenager hunters into the wild. It's like instead of patrolling and protecting the village, just go off.
Yeah, it's a great idea. It's like sending the pregnant woman off to the front line instead of protecting her in the compound.
That happens.
Oh my god!
As she climbs up walls, pressing up her belly against the wall.
She is like 8 months pregnant, and she's slamming her child into the wall she's climbing. It's like, what the hell is happening? She's carrying a gun. She's getting shot at. It's like, what? A pregnant lady. Of any
somehow her coat hides her big ass belly. I don't know how, but okay.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't matter if it's like 2 months or 9 months. It's like she's pregnant. It's obvious.
And these people want to tell us that we are the misogynists.
Yeah.
And when you see it,
go send your pregnant ladies to death. I don't care.
And when you see it, you're like, okay, that's not right. I know she wants to prove herself.
Running around isn't exactly a thing that pregnant women are very good at or want to do.
And not only that, she's a medical person. She's like a surgeon. So she should have way more knowledge and understanding of what not to do when you're pregnant.
Yeah. That's great. This is just
it's you see this scene, you're like this, like there's scenes like that in the game, you're like, come on. Really? We're doing this? You're petting a dog.
It's progressive.
You're playing fetch with the dog. Oh, the dog's so cute. Gee, I'm so glad Darth Vader is petting a dog. That makes me feel so much better for Darth Vader.
I mean, Hitler pet dogs.
I mean, there is a good depiction of a villain, and in the end, he's really just a villain. But there is a tragic element to him. That is in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Amalthus becomes a religious figurehead, and he was a caring field medic, or worked as that in a war, and he was caring. He was actually caring and believing in the architect, which is the god figure of that world, and at some point. He just treated someone in the field camp, and then later that day, he comes across a house in the woods that is where he hears screams from, and enters to see what's going on and if he can help. And he sees the very man whose life he saved now robbing a woman, killing her to take her stuff. And Amalthus goes into a rage, kills the man. And his belief, his faith in his God is shattered in that moment. And he takes the child, steps out, and watches the. He's standing on a cliff. He's not throwing away the child. He's keeping the child, but he's looking up at the symbol of the seed of the God of that world, which is a world tree, and he just wonders: is this the world that the creator intended? He cannot believe that. He cannot fathom this from this event. And from that moment on, his corruption and plunge into nihilism is born. That is not an instant thing. That goes throughout all his past from that point onwards, where he grows a desire to destroy and remake the world in his own image, to become God himself, and to be heard by his God, and wanting the answers as to why the world is this horrible thing, where these unbelievably horrible things can happen. And he essentially loses his sanity over this. But it is all legitimate questions that many people ask themselves. And with this past revealed throughout the course of the game, you may not like Amalthus, what he has become, but you have an understanding what made him that, and why he has this nihilistic desire in the end, because this world is unbearable to him. So he rather destroys it all, and with the intent to make a new one. But this The Last of Us 2 stuff, that's just, I don't know, it's just crap.
All right. So do you guys want to keep going, or do you want to keep listening to Kavernacle today? Because it's kind of silly.
Yeah, it's a bit late. But I would be up for finishing this off tomorrow.
All right. I'm
Sure.
okay.
And mainly because well, it's half of it, and it's a new thing.
Yeah.
It's not an old video. It's a recent thing.
All right. Well, it's we are half done, so that's a good time to call it a night and take it easy and do it tomorrow if we have a time. Yeah, I think I'm good for that. Everyone okay?
Yeah.
All righty.
Yep.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow, part 2 of the Kavernacle's anti-SJW bigotry, blah, 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 blah. Lots of stuff he's going to say. So thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you real soon. Have yourself a great evening.